Hello.
Hello.
Is it me you're looking for?
I can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your
I can see
smile.
in your smile.
These are all lies. These are all lies. All right,
Oh.
so
Sweet little lies.
if we can get the issues fixed with Streamable, we're having some issues with Streamable right now. If we can get them fixed by tomorrow, see, this is why I don't like Streamable trying to charge me at like the end of the month. It always tries to charge me on the 29th. You know, right, like just a few days before payday, because I get paid at the first of every month. So there's like by that time, all the other bills have eaten away what money I had. So yeah, I get to have fun with that. But yeah, I hope that we get everything resolved with Streamable soon, because for some reason it's just not updating the information I need it to update. And until that gets resolved, I can't upload anything to Streamable. So Konosuba may be delayed on Patreon a little longer. Also, I just cut the footage that I want to use for the preview for Konosuba. I don't have like a lot to say. It's like, here it is. Just I don't think it needs a preamble. It's just like, here's the preview, show it, that's it. Like I'm burnt out on Konosuba after today. Like there was just a lot of stuff that happened today. And it's not that I have issues with our Konosuba. I freaking love it. But I've been working on it for over a year. And now I'm just like I'm
It's
just
finally
like,
over.
take it and let me feel relief. Just
Let me move on. Let me
me
bask in the
let me
work's all
move
over. Let
on
it
to
wash
other
over me.
things. Can I
Release
go
me.
back to
Yeah.
only doing 4 things at once instead of 5, please?
Let me go back to working on slime.
You're not kidding. Anyhow,
I haven't heard anything about slime since you started this. Really, now I think about it.
since I started what?
Konosuba.
No, I've been working on slime.
But I haven't.
He's been
You and I
cooking.
have not talked too much about Konosuba, to be fair. So
That's also true. Yeah.
I know I like near the beginning, but then later on.
You're in the credits. That's the important part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, got Konosuba coming up. If you're on the production server, if you're one of the 3 tiers, the top 3 tiers that gets to join the production server, that video is available to you. You can see the post, you can watch the link, you can check it out on Google Drive. The full thing is there in all of its 34 plus minute glory. So
Yay!
apologies to our patrons. We are working on trying to get the situation managed. It's one of those cases of, hey, Streamable, shut up and take our money. And then why won't you take our money? We're trying to give you our money. Take our freaking money. And then there's the process of uploading to YouTube, and I'll be doing that after the stream, and then we get to freaking play the copyright dance after that. So I'm gonna send Tony 2 things. I had to send him the preview, I think. So Shem, I'm very glad that you're reading today, because I have to do work behind the scenes. I'm just hosting the actual stream.
Yeah, it's all good.
You guys do the job of keeping people entertained. Today's your day. Where's Sky
Okay.
at?
Yay!
Last week we had Sky in here just chatting away, and now it's a new person's turn to read, and I don't see them in the comments. It's like, come on, Sky.
Have you messaged them?
Don't make fun of just Sonic. You have to make fun of the rest of us.
Equal roasts.
Yeah, equal
Make for a good
roasts,
meal.
man.
Equal opportunity roasting, my guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, man.
Yeah, I get to roast these guys as well.
an attempt was made.
Did he?
Oh.
Oh, well, he committed to the bit.
Welcome back.
There we go.
Good comedic timing.
I knew no one was really gonna buy it, so I'm like, just give it a second.
I was like,
a
yeah.
bit.
I was
Hold on.
like, oh, is he?
No, I've
There.
got a
Okay.
I've got a sound for that. Where's that tumbleweed sound?
No, I could have played the other one that I
That
had,
was
but
really good.
I
Oh
didn't
no,
think.
I
Oh no,
wouldn't
it's this
have heard
one.
it. Stream wouldn't have heard it. Again, soundboard's
Yeah.
There you go.
That's a good one.
I have soundboard muted, my guy. I have no idea what you did. But
That's why I didn't play it.
but anyway, it is volume 6 tonight. Pardon me.
Mhm.
We are on the final volume of season 1. So this is the
Mhm.
last book, and then we finish up season 1, and then we will start
Ooh.
season 2. Yeah. So I've got kind of a running like joke going in my head. I was like, which comes first, season 3 of the anime, or us ending season 2 of the light novels? Because the money is strong that we're gonna get to season 3 before the anime does right now.
Wow.
It has a lot to do with the fact, and Moon brought this up. I think it was yesterday, that we tear through Mushoku Tensei. Like, we move through like the light novels. It is very much
Oh,
not
yeah.
slime, but then again, I also realized something else.
Hmm.
As much as we think slime is long, oh my god, when you realize it, as you get further and further into T-Bait, oh my god, those books take forever. But you're hanging on kind of everything that's happening, so it doesn't feel like it. But like when you do rereads of the beginning after the end, holy shit. Like, once you know what's coming and you're not hanging on every single word, and you're like, oh yeah, I remember this, and you're going through it, you're like, holy crap, I don't remember this much stuff being in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the rereads feel like they take forever. With that being said, yeah, we're starting with volume 6 today. Shim is going to be reading for us.
Mhm.
And yeah, there we go. That's what we got going on. So
All right.
without further ado, as I said, Konosuba's out. We're working on solo leveling slime, date, and shield right now. And sometime this month I will start working again on Infinity's Light. I swear to God I will. That being said, though, please enjoy. If you get a chance to see it, if you're on the server, and of course, please enjoy today's reading. I've got to get to work. I've got to get back to work, in fact. So take it
All
away,
right.
Shim.
Got it. Chapter 1. Oh, wait, actually, no, I'll start with the quote at the beginning. The easiest moment to fall into despair is the moment in which you see a glimmer of hope. Not every person gets to live their life freely. Author, Rudius Greyrad. Translation, Jean R.F. Magot. Chapter 1, Route Selection. I was now 12. I only realized this when I looked down at my adventure card and, all of a sudden, I saw the number 12 in the age column. When had my birthday gone by without me noticing? Being on a voyage like this skewed my sense of time. Still, 2 years since we were teleported, huh? It only taken 2 years to travel across both the Demon Continent and the Millis Continent. Or if you looked at it the other way, 2 whole years had already passed. No, excuse me. At any rate, the Asura Kingdom was almost before us. After what had transpired on the Millis Continent, it seemed unlikely we'd experience much hardship from here on out. We had money and the means to travel. The only thing I had to worry about was not knowing the whereabouts of the rest of my family. Zenith, Lilia, Aisha, and also Sophie. Despite Paul's efforts, they still hadn't been found. I believed they were all still alive, but no matter how eager I was to search for them, they wouldn't be easy to find. All I could do was take my time and do a thorough job. We were currently at the eastern edge of the King Dragon realm in the harbor city of Eastport. Just like in Westport, the city had a sizable presence of fisheries and smugglers. We booked an inn and began our strategy meeting. As usual, the three of us gathered around a map, our faces pressed in close. All right, let's talk about what we're going to do from here on out. The other two peered at the map with serious expressions on their faces. We'd done this enough that I expected them to be sick of this, but even Eris, sorry, someone with no patience for complex conversations, was listening in with a solemn look on her face. There are 3 routes from here to the Asura Kingdom, I explained, pointing at the map I just purchased. It was a simple map with rough outlines of forest and village locations. The manufacture and sale of detailed maps was strictly prohibited in this country, so as to prevent other countries from possibly getting hold of these maps. Well, it didn't matter as long as we knew the basic lay of the land. The first is a highway primarily used as a trade route. I used my finger to trace the path which detoured east around the King Dragon Mountains. This is the safest route based on our traveling speed. We'd arrive in 10 months' time. Why do we have to go around like that? Eris asked, understandably doubtful. I pointed to the western flank of the mountains. Because if we detour to the west, we'll run into a large forest. That's the second possible route. Or route. A vast, dense forest spread across the land west of the King Dragon Mountains, making it impossible to travel by carriage. If you were familiar with the path, you could take months off the journey by taking this route. Let's go with the route. But this would require riding on horseback. Eris and I couldn't do that. Reedred could probably ride a horse, but no matter how small I was, there was no way 3 of us could fit on one horse. If we were going to take that route, we'd have to take it on foot. I had no way of figuring out how many days that would take, but I knew that basically everyone chose the safe eastern route over the alternatives. Either taking the other routes didn't actually save much time, or the eastern path itself was actually faster. Slow and steady wins the race, as they say. That was how I summarized my explanation, at least. Okay, then scratch the western path, Eris agreed. As for the third possible route, it would involve taking a ship to the Begaret continent, then trekking overland to the Asura Kingdom. I had no idea how long this path would take. I'm crossing it off our list of options. How come? Because it's dangerous, I said. Mana was even thicker on the Begaret continent than it was on the Demon continent. The average strength of the beasts there was on par with those of the Demon continent, but there were numerous underground labyrinths that created bizarre weather patterns on the surface. The climate there could easily be described in one word: desert. The entire continent was one enormous desert. There were gigantic scorpions the size of a great tortoise and masses of enormous worms that preyed primarily on said scorpions. The days were scorching hot and the nights were arctic cold. There were almost no oases so there was nowhere to stop and rest. As one approached the Asura Kingdom, the sand gave way to a snow-covered terrain with freezing temperatures, and there would be fewer and fewer monsters to hunt for food. Thus, we're going to take the eastern route. As usual, you're a coward, Eris complained. I'm just faint of heart. I think I could do it just fine. It seemed Eris wanted to see the Begaret continent. Her eyes were alight, however, the distance between the central continent and the Millis continent was nothing compared to the distance between here and the Begaret continent. We'd be on a ship for a long time if we choose that route. Are you sure you'd be okay with that, Eris? We're not going to Begaret. And that was how we decided we were taking the eastern route. Before I realized what was happening, I was in a pure white room. Emotion welled from the depths of my body. It was such a familiar sensation I could easily describe it. So damn disgusting. Already resorting to foul language, just as crass as ever, I see. Standing before me was an indistinct person-shaped mosaic. The man god. Acting like you know me. Can't believe you're showing up again, just when I finally started to forget about you. Yes, it's been a whole year. Yes, a whole year. Such a long time. Tell me, do you only show up once a year? If so, that would put my heart at ease. No, that's not the case at all. I figured as much. After the first time you appeared, you showed yourself again just a week later. That aside, you're as cold to me as ever. It's all thanks to me that you got that demon eye, you know. Yeah, well, I'm grateful for that, but if you told me more, I wouldn't have ended up in that cell, and I wouldn't have missed important information that led to my fight with Paul. Ah, damn it. Bet you found the whole thing really entertaining. Paul and I butting heads because I didn't know my family was missing, me being all depressed afterwards and Eris cheering me up, even managing to make up with Paul in the end. Well, yes, that was entertaining. But are you sure about that? Sure about what? Sure that it's all my fault? Damn it. Being in this room takes me back to the past. Back to when I used to blame everything on other people. I reflected on my mistakes. Reflected. Damn it. Can't remember what kind of reflection I did. Why can't I? Damn it. Damn it. Well, that's part of your charm, but a little reflection won't be enough for you to move forward. Whatever. It's just that I can't remember right now. But I will when I wake up. I can recognize my mistakes, so let's restart our conversation. I've decided to listen to you. Listen? Now this is different. You're honestly going to listen to what I have to say? Yeah, that's right. There's one thing I want you to tell me. What's that? I don't mind answering if it's something I have knowledge about. Tell me where my family is. I thought your family was in another world. Don't play games with me. Zenith, Lilia, and Aisha. If possible, Sylphie, Ghislaine, Philip, and Soros too. Hmm. What? I'm asking sincerely. I don't know if I should tell you. You're just a voyeur who spies on people's lives. Are you only going to tell me things that are convenient for you? You can arrange for me to meet up with the world's greatest demon emperor, but you can't tell me where my family is? Okay, I'm sorry. I got a little carried away. Good, as long as you know what you did. But are you sure? I might lie to you this time. What? Lie? So you finally admit it. That's right. You're the type to lie, aren't you? I'm asking whether you can trust what I say. No, I can't trust you. This is an emergency, so I'll do as you say. But if it turns out you're lying to me, I'll never listen to your advice again. Got it? Then I want you to promise me something. Promise you what? If my advice allows you to reunite with your family, then I want you to trust me from now on. Are you telling me to be your little puppet? Be your yes man and obey your every command? No, I'm not asking you to go that far. But it's going to get exhausting if you're this hostile every time we talk, you know? It'll be exhausting even if I'm not. Do you even know what that's like? To be haunted by a past you want to forget? To feel like the memories of your repentance and growth have been erased? To be overwhelmed by self-loathing the moment you wake up in the morning? I see. I've wronged you. All right, then, why don't we decide on some rules? Like me telling you ahead of time when I'll next drop by to give you advice, or drop in to give you advice. Yes, that's a wonderful idea. How about coming to see me again in 100 years? But you'll be dead by then, no? I'm telling you to never show your face again. Well, I figured you'd say that. Are you sure you don't want any advice from me this time? No. Hold on a sec. I'm sorry. I'll compromise. If you can give me advice this time that will reunite me with a member of my family, then I'll stop being so hostile when we talk. And you'll trust me? Nope, I'm not willing to go that far. But I'll at least stop having these meaningless exchanges about whether or not I'm going to listen. Well, that's optimistic. So, you compromise too. Stop showing up out of nowhere like you did this time. Give me some prior warning, or show up in someone else's dreams and use them to pass on a message to me. That would be difficult. There's actually a condition that must be met for me to be able to appear in someone's dreams. A condition? So that means you can't just show your face whenever you want? Exactly. In addition to that, I can only show up in the dreams of someone who is on the same wavelength as I am. There aren't many who can receive my advice with such fortuitous timing. You're quite lucky. I could weep for joy. Anyway, there's a condition, huh? What is it? Who knows? I'm not even sure myself. All I know is that there'll be a sudden aha moment when I'm like, this guy's the one, today's the time, and that's when I'm able to link up. Yeah, so that means you can't completely control it either. Forget the prior warning then. Let's see. I'd like you to be more detailed in your advice. If all you say is go here or go there, it just leaves me confused as to what I'm supposed to do. It makes me feel like you're playing me. All right, more details. Got it. Okay, go ahead then. Well, this is my advice this time. A vision suddenly appeared in my demon eye. A back alley in some country somewhere, there's a lone girl, and someone violently grabs her hand. The person who seized her is a soldier. There's two soldiers. The other one is tearing a piece of paper he'd snatched from her into pieces. The girl watches him, screaming something. The vision suddenly ended there. Rudius, listen to me closely. Her name is Aisha Greyrat. She is currently being detained in the Chiron Kingdom. You'll be there when the events from your visions transpire, and you'll meet her and save her. You absolutely must not let your names be known. Call yourself the Kennel Master of Dead End and ask her for the details of her situation. Then send a letter to your acquaintance in the Chiron Royal Palace. If you do that, both Lilia and Aisha will be rescued from that place. Huh? Wait, what? No, wait, why? Acquaintance? A letter? Was that a little too much detail? If I tell you too much, it'll spoil my fun, so that'll have to do. Now then, I wonder which one you'll get along with. What? Lily and Aisha are both in the Chiron Kingdom? Why? If that's where they should have been found by now. What do you mean? Which one am I going to get along with? Does that mean I'm going to clash with the other? Good luck, Rudius. Luck. 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 As the word echoed in my mind, my consciousness faded. I woke with a start. Ugh. My head was pounding. The dizziness was overwhelming, and I felt nauseated. I climbed out of bed and half ran straight to the bathroom where I started vomiting in the toilet bowl. I had a dreadful headache, and my feet were unsteady. When I left the bathroom, the trip back to my room felt much longer than it had when I raced in here. I pressed my head against the wall and slowly slumped to the floor. In the grim darkness of the inn, I could hear someone panting. Startled, I looked around to find the source, only to realize it was the sound of my own breathing. What's wrong? Are you okay? A white face floated in the pitch black of the hallway. It was Regard. He was peering at me with a worried look on his face. Yeah, I'm fine. What did you eat? Can you use detoxification magic? He pulled a cloth from his pocket and wiped the area around my mouth. At the whiff of my own vomit, the nausea flared up again, but I managed to keep from barfing again, even as the queasiness lingered in my chest. I'm okay. I somehow managed to wring the words out from the depths of my throat. Are you sure? He said, still sounding worried. I nodded. I was familiar with this headache. I'd felt it before when we were at Windport. Yeah, I was half asleep and failed to moderate my eye of foresight. That's why this happened. When I previously used the Eye of Foresight to look several seconds in the future, it had given me a headache just like this one. I had a good idea why this had happened. The dream, that advice, and the vision he made me see. The man god showed me the future, most likely using the Eye of Foresight. So that's why, I mumbled to myself. Reader gave me a puzzled look. I remember how I'd met the great demon emperor in the port city and obtained my demon eye. I remembered how sudden it was and how, for some reason, I'd picked up this specific eye. I'd met Gallus right after that, but the eye contributed nothing to our journey across the sea. It was true that I'd eventually defeated Gallus using this eye, but I felt like I could have managed that on my own if I had to. To me, there was no greater meaning behind my acquisition of the demon eye, but perhaps there was to the man god. Perhaps the whole reason he'd arranged for me to meet the great demon emperor was so that he could use the eye to show me the future. Sure did feel like he was making careful preparations for something. My anxiety reared its ugly head, and for the first time, I feared the man god. I got the impression that this being, this creature with undefined form and incredible power, was trying to use me for something. It sent a chill through me. Rudius, you look pale. Are you sure you're okay? Regard asked again, looking concerned. I almost blurted out my anxieties. The truth is that ever since I met you, the man god has been monitoring me, been following his advice and doing what he tells me. But in that moment, I realized something. Ever since I met you, that was it. The first time we came into contact was right before I met Regard. Back then, the god had also advised me to help Regard out. Now, that was strange. Why didn't he contact me before that? Why did he only contact me right before the displacement incident? Why advise me to help Regard rather than just rely on him? I felt like all these things were connected. I had no proof of this, but despite that, a thought occurred to me. Maybe the man god plans to make Regard do something. The man god said he could only appear in my dreams if a certain conditions were, or if a certain condition was met. Perhaps he was bound by that condition, so he couldn't manipulate Reader directly. So he triggered the displacement incident to transport me, someone who did fit the criteria, to the demon continent and guided me to Reader, thereby getting him to accompany us to the central continent. But if that were the case, why help me acquire the demon eye or give me advice on how to save Aisha? I didn't know. I didn't know what he was thinking, nor was I sure if I should say something to Reader. I wanted to confide in someone, but I didn't think it was right to put more on Reader's shoulders. Maybe telling him would even fulfill the man god's unknown conditions, and the god would be able to talk directly to Regard. And honestly, Regard would probably be easily taken in by whatever the man god said to him. I wasn't even entirely convinced he was telling me the truth, but at least my hostility made it difficult for him to deceive me. I wanted to believe that as long as I kept that up, nothing too terrible would happen. Mr. Regard, if you find yourself in a difficult situation and someone whispers honeyed words in your ear, don't ever believe what they say. Deceitful people strategically target you when you're most vulnerable. In the end, I didn't tell him about the man god. I have no idea what you're talking about, but I understand. I had mixed feelings watching him look at me so earnestly and nod. Rager trusted me, and yet I was hiding things from him. It was largely because I had determined keeping them a secret was the best course of action. But that didn't alleviate my guilt. My headache and nausea had faded without my noticing. Now my thoughts weighed heavily for a different reason. I returned to my room, but even after I crawled back to bed, I didn't feel like sleeping. My eyes were wide open and ideas churned in my head. When I closed my eyes, they floated in front of me, one after the other. What is shit? I heard someone talking in their sleep. Eris was sprawled on the bed beside me, snoring away. Her sleeping posture was as poor as ever. Legs spread wide open. Rather than pajamas, she wore a pair of shorts, her toned legs poking out, and a dangerous gap at the helm where you could peek farther inside. Her shirt was riding up, exposing her adorable belly button. Even if you looked straight down at her, you could see the curves of her chest. She didn't wear a bra to bed, so I squinted hard enough I could see the small peaks of the tips of her breasts. I could also see the drool dribbling down her chin as she grinned in her sleep.
I did it, Rudy.
I smiled, yeah. I smiled wryly at her sleep talk and rose out of bed. I pulled her shirt back down and readjusted the blanket over her. Rius is a perv. She had a dirty look on her face. Here I was, making myself sick
Somehow
with worry,
she-
and she still called me a perv. Yeah, she somehow knew. I was tempted to touch her breasts, so my actions would at least warrant that accusation, but a wave of drowsiness came over me. I yawned and collapsed back into my bed. Eris was impressive as ever. No sooner had I thought that than I was asleep. Chapter 2. Rice. Yeah, now we're talking. The next day dawned. As we grabbed breakfast at a pub, I announced, "We're going to stop by the Shroan Kingdom." Regent and Eris both tilted their heads but still nodded. Okay, fine. Understood. Neither one of them asked why or for what purpose. I actually appreciated that. I'd already decided that I would avoid talking about the man god as much as possible, but still fretted over how to explain my actions without bringing him up. Regent probably had his own theories about or after seeing me last night. He probably already realized I was hiding something, though it was entirely possible he just thought I was hiding some kind of illness. Not entirely incorrect, given that the man god was like a plague bearer. Sharon. You mean that place where your master's at, right? Or sorry, Sharon. You mean that place where your master's at, right? As Eris said it, the image of a certain young girl came to mind. Roxy Magurdia. She was right. She was supposed to be in Sharon. The man god had said to send a letter to my acquaintance. He must have meant for me to plead with Roxy for her assistance. That's right. Somebody I really respect. My teacher. I'd almost said the word master, but caught myself in time. Come to think of it, Roxy forbade me from calling her my master. Though master was exactly the term I'd use when telling everyone how wonderful she was lately. Oh well. We should stop by and meet them. They might be able to help us somehow. Eris nodded to herself in satisfaction. Someone as incredible as Roxy would surely be of great help to us. I was certain of it. She was also, however, a magician at the royal palace and had to be busy. I didn't want to trouble her so much, or too much. She'd already done so much for me. Regardless of the displacement incident or the search for my family, I still wanted to see her. I also wanted to thank her for her dictionary of demon kind. If she hadn't given me that book, might still be on the demon continent right now. I regretted losing it in the incident. It deserved to be copied and sold worldwide. I want to see your teacher, Eris said. I'm interested in meeting them too. Both Eris and Regard seemed intrigued, probably because I invoked Roxy's name with praise every now and then. I was so proud to call her my teacher, and so I mentioned her everywhere I went. That was a given. All right then, when we get to Sharon Kingdom, I'll introduce you. As I made that promise, the three of us set off. First, we proceeded along the highway, which took us straight through Wyvern, the capital of the King Dragon Realm. From there, the route veered around the Mountains and split off. One path stretched up north, and another led out west. We selected the northern route that led to Sharon. We wound up unexpectedly spending 7 whole days in this capital city of Wyvern. Our initial plan was to leave after 3 days, but there was an issue with our carriage, and the repairs took some time. I could have done the adjustments myself had the carriage been made from stone or steel, but there was nothing magic could do to fix something made of wood. We paid extra to rush the repairs. It still took 7 days for them to be completed, but there was no reason to be hasty. In the vision that the man god showed me, Aisha was surrounded by 2 men. I was worried, but the man god had said I would be there when it happened. In that case, perhaps our carriage troubles were the work of fate. If fate was involved, then no matter how quickly I rushed to Sharon, I wouldn't meet her before it was time. I had to stay as calm as possible. With that in mind, I made my way around Wyvern. King Dragon Realm was the third biggest country in this world and the largest in the southern part of the central continent with 4 vassal states under it. Once this country had been just one of many in the south that changed after it attacked the King Dragon Mountains in the northwest and slew their ruler, uh, Kajak, the monarch of King Dragons. This gave his conquerors access to a huge vein of minerals, instantaneously boosting their country's resources and power. It was also the origin of 48 magical swords that were now scattered around the world, as well as one of the places mentioned in a line in the Epic of the North God. Despite this storied past, the country didn't seem like it put too much emphasis on tradition. Instead, it felt like America, like a mix of different elements. There were many smithies and sword training halls, and the styles were diverse, but most of the techniques I saw belonged in the North God style or Water God style. I tried peeking into one of the training halls, but most of the people being taught were children. Even the masters of those halls were mostly only advanced tier sword fighters. So Eris took one look at them and said with a snort of laughter, "They're nothing special." Even Rager expressed disapproval. At any rate, I decided to gather information on missing persons. I found one of Paul's underlings in the Adventurers Guild who told me there was no information to be found in this country. It wasn't going to be easy to find anyone who was still missing after all this time. Following that, I did my usual market research. Specialty goods from both the Millis continent and the central continent were being sold here. It was among the wide variety of food being sold in the marketplace that I made a discovery. Rice. Its color was a bit yellow, but it was definitely rice. Of course, I already knew there was rice in this country. I'd eaten white rice when I was in the Eastport. I had really been looking forward to eating this country's cuisine, but unfortunately, the only things their pubs served were easy made soups, paella, and rice porridge. Bit different from what I was looking for. I wanted to eat pure white rice. The moment I saw the rice on sale or for sale, an electric shock ran through me. If I couldn't buy cooked white rice, then I just needed to make it myself. I bought the rice instantly. A few hours later, I was in the inn's garden preparing my food. I had 4.5 grams of rice, cooking utensils I'd carefully prepared with earth magic, an outdoor stove, a recipe that a pub owner taught me, eggs, and salt. I held the recipe in one hand while I washed the rice and started the fire in the stove. Key to the fire was key to cooking rice properly. What are you doing? I had my game face on as Eris came over. An experiment, I said. Hmm? She huffed in disinterest and started swinging her arms. Judging by the way she kept stealing glances at me, she was actually more curious than she let on. I turned over the hourglass I'd borrowed from the pub owner and powered up the fire. The pub owner said that the trick to cooking rice was slowly turning up the heat, so I was following his advice. After turning it over the hourglass 3 times, I lowered the heat. Then I turned it over 2 more times. Finally, I extinguished the flames and turned it over another 2 times. It's done, I said. Really? Eris stopped swinging her arms and stooped beside me. Her scent wafted toward me, but my hunger was currently stronger than my sex drive. She looked at the pot in anticipation, and I was also filled with excitement as I lifted the lid. The wave of heat carried the smell of freshly cooked rice right to my nose. It smells really good. Good job, Rudius. No, I need to taste it first, I said, pinching a bit of rice between my fingers and popping in my mouth. I give it a 45 out of 100. It was nowhere near as good as the 2 types of rice, Japanese rice that stood up in my memory. Koshi Hikari and Sasan Nishiki. Even if I compared it all to compared it to all the modern types of Japanese rice, it wouldn't even be C ranked. It was dry, had kind of a bitterness to it, and was still faintly yellow in color. My poor cooking methods were partly to blame, but the ingredients themselves were inferior too. Perhaps because rice wasn't a staple in this country. You couldn't even call this white rice. In truth, I should have given it only 30 points, which would have been a failing grade. But tasting rice at all evoked such nostalgia that I couldn't. With a bit of seasoning, it could earn 15 more points. Ah, I really am too kind, I mused inwardly. We ate this before, right? What kind of experience was this? This is just the beginning. I heaped the rice into an earthen bowl I'd made. Then I took a scrambled raw egg, which I'd cast detoxification magic on just in case, and created a hole in the middle of the rice before pouring in the mixture. I sprinkled salt all over the top, took the chopsticks I also made with the magic, and put both hands together. Here we go. Huh? But, Rudius, that egg is raw. I opened my mouth wide and took a huge bite of the now brightly yellow colored rice. It smelled questionable. The salt I'd added to it didn't seem to do anything. Now that I was trying, I noticed the flavor of the egg was different too. It was a far cry from the fresh one sold in Japan for raw consumption. I should probably cast detoxification again on myself afterward just to be safe. Also, it definitely needed soy sauce, without which the raw taste was all too apparent. I wondered if soy sauce existed in this world as well. If it didn't, then maybe I could find some kind of substitute. Does does it taste good? Since Eris had asked, I used my earth magic to make another bowl. I spooned in some rice, added some salt, and offered it to her. Also passed her a spoon I'd made. This would be beginner friendly with no chopsticks. Hey, is this really all there is to it? I nodded quietly, though I wasn't proud of it. There had been a point in my former life when I subsisted solely on rice for meals and rice ball for snacks. Hmm. Eris chewed slowly, mixed emotions on her face. Her tastes were still that of a child. Once I broke an egg over it, she did say, "This is better than before," and filled her cheeks with rice as she ate it all. Raw egg mixed with rice really was the best meal ever. Perfectly balanced, too. As we said that, excuse me. As we said that, we finished our food, gobbling down the last of the crunchy burnt rice at the bottom. Richard was the only one who didn't get to share the meal, but he made no complaints. He's the real adult, I thought. Still, I did feel a little guilty. Next time I make sure he got a share. Looks like they're having a good time. We departed from the King Dragon realm and took the highway up north. There were 2 more countries between us and the Shirone Kingdom, the Sanakia Kingdom and the Kika Kingdom. They were both vassal states of the King Dragon realm. Rice cultivation was booming in the Sanakia Kingdom. Its climate must have been perfect for it because the highway was lined with rice paddies. There were lots of rivers in the area, so the topography was probably similar to Japan and East Asia. The rice was the same kind I ate in the King Dragon realm, meaning it was probably exported from here. I decided to call it Sanakia rice. At the inn we stopped at, our meals consisted mainly of seafood and rice. I learned to eat in moderation since coming to this world, but the appeal of rice was just too irresistible, and I ate until my stomach was full to bursting. Eris kept looking over at me, wide-eyed during mealtimes. Perhaps it piqued her interest that I, normally so fussy about food, had lately been shoveling it in. "What's wrong?" I asked finally. "I thought you were the type that didn't really eat much, Rudius." I'd never been a light eater in my previous life, where I always came back for another helping as long as there was still food on the table. The only reason I've been practicing moderation since being reborn was because the world's food didn't suit my palate. Leaving aside the tough meat that was a staple of most of our meals on the Demon Continent, even the bread-heavy meals of the Asura Kingdom felt a bit lacking to me. Seeing as cooking wasn't bad, but I couldn't help my longing for rice. Ah, yes, rice is so wonderful, I thought. That we can agree on. Food wasn't the only thing I spent my time on. I popped in at the Adventurers Guild too. Unsurprisingly, given that this was the central continent, invoking the name Dead End didn't elicit the least bit of shock. Just because someone was famous in America, for example, didn't mean their popularity extended to Japan, or how there were a lot of children who knew about Superman but didn't know who Captain America was. Interesting. They were adventurers, so they'd probably heard the name Dead End before, but no one kicked up as much of a fuss. Even if they knew what the Spurred were, the Spurred's most recognizable trait was their hair color. Just like a track team girl wasn't really a track team girl to a modern day Japanese otaku unless she had a black ponytail, Reader wasn't really a Spurred without the green hair. That said, A-ranked adventurers seemed to be more observant than the rest. Hey, hey you guys, I've never seen you before. You're A-ranked, alright? Did you just form a group recently? The man who approached us had an aura similar to Nokopara's. Considering how that had gone, I wasn't too keen on getting friendly with him. We started 2 years ago, I replied. Ooh, that's not something you hear around here. Dead end, huh? That's the name of some fiend from the Demon Continent, right? Yes, and we've traveled all the way from the Demon Continent to get here. Saw that one coming. And let me guess, that guy over there is the fiend. Yes, I said. But could you please refrain from calling him that? Why? That's what you're trying to pass yourselves off as, right? He laughed as if we were pulling his leg, but I kept a serious expression on my face. Eris looked slightly perturbed, and Reger looked uncomfortable. Man broke into a cold sweat when he saw our reactions. Uh, Wait, are you for real? If you don't believe me, would you like to show him, or if you don't believe me, would you like him to show you the gem on his forehead? No, that's fine. I just didn't think he was the real thing. I guess the Spurred really do exist then. The fact that we'd reached the A rank on the Demon Continent lent more credibility to our claims of Reger being a Spurred. Despite the harsh treatment demons face on the Central Continent, people didn't seem as terrified of the Spurred here. Perhaps because the threat of them was so foreign. After all, people who claimed brown bears were harmless were generally people who had never encountered one in the mountains before. The name Dead End had lost most of its value, but it would be easier to restore Reger's reputation when people weren't terrified of him. That said, I still hadn't come up with a good plan for that. The Regered figure I'd made wouldn't be any good as long as we were in the domain and the Millis faith either. As I was preoccupied with those thoughts, Eris glared at the man who had spoken to us. Harris, please don't start a fight, I said. Yeah, I know that already. Okay, good. Lately, she stopped scrapping with the other adventurers. Her demeanor had grown tougher this past year. She no longer had the look of a novice about her. Just one glance was enough to tell a person she was dangerous. So why would they bother approaching? For her own part, Eris had also come to understand the adventurer's style of humor. Even if someone said something offensive to her, she was now calm enough to realize that she'd heard it before. She'd answer their quip with an appropriate response. The other person would laugh, and she'd grin back at them. She really had just become another adventurer, or she had become just like an adventurer. That said, she was always still game if someone wanted to pick a fight with her. Some people, most of them C ranked and young themselves, would deliberately approach her after seeing she was an A rank despite her youth. They'd come up and say something like, I bet you don't have any skills yourself. You just had those guys in your party carry you the whole way, right? This invariably resulted in a one punch knockout. Somehow, morons like this seemed to be in just about every adventurers guild we went to. As for me, I would just offhandedly respond, That's right. The master of our party is so incredible. We're living the high life. I had no pride. Besides, it was true that we'd rely on Reger a lot to advance to such a high rank. Eris didn't seem to like my attitude, but there was no way we could have gotten this far by ourselves. Let's at least show some modesty, I thought. Cultivation of a flower that resembled field mustard was widespread in the Kika kingdom. From the highway, we saw endless fields of white flowers in bloom. Definitely a flourishing industry, but also one the kingdom had been compelled to invest in by the King Dragon realm. The abundant rice paddies in the Sanakia kingdom had also been planted in the realm's command. Being a vassal state was rough. Rice was a staple in this country's cuisine, too. Upon testing it, I realized that the further north you went, the better the quality of the rice. Perhaps the day when I would experience love at first bite with rice in this world wasn't far. Unfortunately, the northern part of the central continent was currently split into a bunch of tiny countries engaged in continuous minor conflicts. There was no way they could cultivate delicious rice under those circumstances. Truly a pity. There was a dish called Nanaho Shiaki that was popular all the way from the King Dragon realm to the Kika kingdom. It was meat covered in rice flour and wheat flour, then fried in oil at a high temperature. In other words, karage, Japanese fried chicken. Apparently, the dish was developed in the Asura kingdom and gained huge popularity there before making it all the way here. It required an abundance of cooking oil to make, but since a neighboring country produced vast amounts of the dish, there were plenty of opportunities to eat it in this region. Unfortunately, this fried chicken didn't taste so good either. The meat used was mostly sheep, pig, or horse. There was no set temperature for the frying, so sometimes it just came out hard, and other times it came out gooey. It also wasn't properly seasoned, even though you could use salt, dried herbs, or the sauce that was unique to the area to change the flavor. The food we'd had in Eastport suddenly didn't seem so bad by comparison. Quite the opposite, in fact. Being a bit of a gourmand, I understood that the cooks in this country were trying their best. Still, what they delivered wasn't what I longed for. The lack of soy sauce was impossible to overlook. If I only had soy sauce, garlic, and ginger for seasoning, then I could make something salty and sweet. Lately, or on. Lately, you get this troubled look on your face whenever we eat, Rudius. He's picky about flavor, Reader chimed in. He's probably got some opinions about it. I think it's pretty good, Eris responded. We sat around a table, the two of them gulping down their food. They weren't picky at all. I hadn't come all this way to be a food critic and pass judgment on every meal, but I couldn't help but think how much better it would be with just a little bit of soy sauce. But the texture of this food is amazing. It's crunchy, and then when you bite into it, the juice just fills your mouth. Yeah, it's good, Regent agreed. They both asked for seconds and cleaned their bowls in no time flat. How fortunate they were. They could find this kind of food delicious because it was the first time they'd ever had it. I, knowing there was better out there, couldn't be content. I couldn't help my cravings for white rice and fried chicken with soy sauce or for tofu and miso soup with seaweed in it. My insatiable quest for good food continued alongside my search for missing persons, which, of course, yielded absolutely no information. That was how things went for 4 months, then finally we reached the Sharon Kingdom. Chapter 3, The Sharon Kingdom. I gotta get some water. The Sharon Kingdom was a small but old country with a 200-year history. This was notable because all the human countries except for the Asura Kingdom and the Holy Country of Milas had been wiped out in the war 400 years ago. The southern part of the central continent had been ripe with conflict until the King Dragon realm took control of the whole region some 300 years ago. Even now, the land to the north of here was now a sprawling region of discord. The Sharon Kingdom was close to the conflict zone, given its precarious location. How had this kingdom endured for 200 years? The answer lay in the allegiance it formed with the King Dragon realm right after it was founded, an alliance in name only. Much like the other two countries we had could cross through to get here, the Sharon Kingdom was basically a vassal state to the King Dragon realm. That said, I had very little interest in the national politics. The only thing I cared about was the fact that Roxy was in this country. I wondered if my young wait, no. She wasn't actually young, was she? Anyway, I wondered if my adorable clumsy master was still a court magician here. She said the prince was giving her trouble, but I was sure she could handle that. It'd been so long. I wanted to see her. I wanted to see her and tell her I was all right. I wanted to tell her about how I visited her hometown. I wanted her to show me the king tier magic that she'd said she could use now. My heart thrummed with anticipation as we made our way down the road towards the capital. Along the side of the highway were disjointed fields or rice fields and grazing livestock. There were also inactive plots of land and pastures full of plants that looked like clover. I wasn't too well versed in this agricultural practices, but the people of this world seemed to be putting some thought into how they grew their crops. Although supposedly a vassal state of the King Dragon realm, the Sharon Kingdom didn't really have the vibe of a colony, unlike the two countries we passed through before. Maybe it was because I was so far away, or because it was being used as a buffer between the conflict zone and other countries. At any rate, such was the landscape that accompanied us as we arrived at the capital, Latakia. In this world, most major cities were surrounded by protective ramparts, including Roa and Milashion. Even the larger cities in the Kika Kingdom and Sanakia Kingdom had walls around them. The same was true of the Sharon Kingdom's capital, which had sturdy, awe-inspiring wall lining its perimeter. In hindsight, it was the same way in the Demon Continent. In fact, because the continent had such a high concentration of powerful monsters, the defenses were more thorough. There wasn't a city out there that could match the huge natural walls that surrounded the city of Rikarisu. Each city on the continent utilized the special abilities of the tribes living nearby to erect strong walls to protect itself. Even small settlements conducted daily exterminations of beasts around their villages' outskirts. In comparison, the ramparts on the central continent looked as if they were really for show. We passed through those walls and made our way into the city,
She
where we parked
demanded
our
to be in
carriage at
there.
the stable.
She asked
There
for
were
it.
many labyrinths
Typical
in the vicinity of the
Neanderthal.
city, so there were
She
plenty
had
of
it
tough-looking
coming,
adventurers
did
around,
she?
many of whom
If
engaged
that were the
primarily in
case,
dungeon
I would
diving. That
gladly.
had been Paul and Ghislaine's life in the past, and even Roxy had done it for a while. I was pretty sure it was Paul who said dungeon divers were incredibly skilled. There were many labyrinths scattered throughout Chiron, and you could make a ridiculous amount of money just by exploring the topmost levels. There were probably a handful of S-ranked adventurers among the dungeon divers who were aiming for the most lucrative loot, and we mingled with that crowd as we traveled the main road and selected a random inn to stay at. As usual, it was tailored to D-ranked adventurers. Even the low-ranked inns in this town were a bit pricey, perhaps because there were no or because there were so many high-ranking adventurers around. Compared to the D-ranked accommodations on the Demon Continent, the quality of the lodgings on the Central Continent wasn't bad at all. It was actually good enough that we would have been fine with rooms aimed at lower-ranked adventurers, but we had enough money not to worry about that. Quite the opposite. In fact, we could have afforded even better accommodations than we wanted. I would like to stay in a better room, I thought to myself at one point, but even though we had extra coin, it felt like a waste. Maybe I really was a penny pincher. All right, now that we have arrived in the Sharon Kingdom, let's conduct our strategy meeting, I announced to the two standing in front of me. Their apathetic applause told me they'd gotten quite used to the setup. Now, what should we start with? We're going to meet your teacher, right? Eris's question reminded me of what the man god had said. Her name is Aisha Greyrat. Currently, she is being detained in the Sharon Kingdom. You'll be there when the events from your visions transpire, and you'll meet and save her. You absolutely must not let your name be known. Call yourself the Kennel Master of Dead End and ask her for details on her situation. Then send a letter to your acquaintance in the Sharon Royal Palace. If you do that, both Lilia and Aisha will be saved from that palace. Something along those lines. If I trusted his advice in its entirety, then I just had to walk down the alleyway I saw in the vision to trigger that event. I figured I should probably take Eris and Regent along as well. After all, the man god said nothing about going alone this time. I continued to think. If I believed the man god, then Lilia and Aisha were being detained at the Sharon Royal Palace. But in my vision, I'd met Aisha outside. That meant she'd somehow managed to escape the palace. I remembered the look of the two men who came after her in my dream. I'd seen their getup numerous times in the city. It was normal soldier's attire. In other words, Aisha would be pursued and then caught by palace soldiers. That was when I would come in. Or that's when I would come in. If I took the most obvious approach to save her, I'd risk making an enemy of the palace, which had to be why the man god had said not to use my name. It might be best if I hid my face, too. While the knights were busy tracking my fake identity, I could send a letter to my acquaintance in the palace, Roxy, and ask her for help. If she was a court magician, then her word should hold some power. I already owed her so much. I didn't want her to, or want to show up barefoot and dirty souled at her doorstep like like a stray child. Although I would happily hash her feet if our positions were, or wash her feet if our positions were reversed. This was the man god we were talking about, though. It was possible he was up to something. If I tell you too much, it'll spoil my fun, he said. In other words, he was hoping for something interesting to happen, and there was probably nothing I could do to avoid it. However, he also said, I hope you'll trust me next time. Hopefully, even if were unpleasant surprises lying in store for me, they wouldn't involve such things as serious injury or the death of someone close to me. But this was all assuming I trusted the jerk. He might just be trying to deceive me this time, with no care for what happened after. Even so, there was no point in putting up needless resistance that might make everything catastrophically worse. I disliked feeling like I was playing into his hands again, but it seemed like I had no choice but to listen. My main goals were now to search for Aisha, to falsify my name, and to send a letter to Roxy. That said, how was I going to convince my companions? The letter wasn't a problem, but I still needed a good reason for searching the back alleys while using a fake name. Ever since we set out from Milashion, they'd make sure one of them was always by my side, even on our free days. Apparently, they were still concerned by how depressed I gotten after my encounter with Paul. I felt bad about having worried them, but there was a high probability we'd end up facing off with some soldiers on our quest to find Aisha. Neither Eris nor Regerd was any good at acting. No matter who I took, it seemed likely they'd do something that would come back to bite us in the butt. Karma had a way of doing that. Now then, what to do? Rudius, what are you worrying about? Well, it's like they say, better to act now and worry later, I reasoned with myself. Actually, I'd like for us to conceal our names while we're here. We're going to be pretending again? Why? Even if I had to keep mum about the man god, there was no reason I had to hide the rest of the story. Actually, I heard from a source that members of my family have been taken captive somewhere in this country. Really? Asked Eris. Oh, grunted Regerd. Neither asked from whom or where I got this information, even though one or the other of them had always been with me whenever I gathered information. But it was better for me that they didn't press the issue. Oh, I get it, Eris exclaimed. They'll be on alert if they hear the name Greyrat then. That's right. So, who's the family? Lilia and Aisha, our former maid and my little sister. Actually, now that I thought about it, what was I supposed to call Lilia anyway? She wasn't really my stepmother. Your little sister? You mean the one who was so full of herself whom we met back in Milashion? I have one more. Uh-huh. Eris looked unenthused as she pursed her lips. So Norn seemed full of herself? I didn't think that at all, but Eris clearly had a different impression. I wonder whose side I would take if Eris were to punch her. Eris snorted triumphantly. Well, if that's what's going on, no complaints here. Impressive, Rudius. You really thought this through. So she said, but I was really only being strung along by the man god. So we'll hide our names. Should we be using fake ones? Yes, and it'd be best to go with something common, I reasoned. How come? It's supposedly better if fake names aren't memorable. What were some of the famous names around these parts? Eris wondered out loud. While we were traveling, I heard names like Sheena and Radar a lot. Or Shina and Radar a lot, Rudius offered. Uh, I guess that would be more like Regerd. I think they made a small typo. Shina, Knight of the Death God, was a female knight who appeared frequently in the Epic of the North God. She was one of the 3 North God knights and used to be one of the god's companions. No matter how brutal the battles, she would always return home, almost as if she were unkillable. The story was probably fictitious, but there were still many who named their child Shina in hopes that the name might keep them from being killed in some freak accident. Radar was the name of a water god. He was a genius at countering attacks and could freeze the ocean and walk on top of it. And he was a excuse me, and was the hero who vanquished the Sea King dragon. The name of that legendary man was passed on through the generations. Each new head of the water god style would inherit it. Men would be called Radar, while women would be called Rada. It was quite a common name around here. The two were putting a lot of thought into the fake names they would use. I was grateful for that. Now I need to give mine some serious thought too. Rudius, what are you going to do? Well, let's see. In this case, it might be better that they know, or better they know right off the bat that it's a fake name. How come? They don't know our names or our faces. It might confuse them if we give them a fake, flashy name to go off of. I said, quoting a line from some super old anime I'd seen a long time ago. To be totally honest, it didn't really matter as long as our names were fake, or the names were fake. Then we should pick a cool name. Cool name, huh? All right, then. I'll call myself the Knight of the Shadow Moon. Knight of the Shadow Moon? Kara's cheeks flushed and her eyes sparkled. That was a character from Kamen Rider who loved haikus and wore what looked like a tacky lunch lady uniform. If someone like that appeared in front of Eris, she'd probably clobber them. I'll do the same one. Wait, but we can't be the same. Did she really like it that much? In that case, might as well stick with the night theme. Okay, then. Eris, you can be the Sword of the Shadow Moon, and Regerd can be the Lance of the Shadow Moon. Then we all match. Very nice. We match. Let's use those. I thought Regerd might be embarrassed by such a name, but he didn't look too bothered. Paul had said the Aqua Hartia was a cool name. Apparently, the concept of nerds didn't exist in this world. But you don't seem like a knight at all, Rudius, Eris muttered after I thought we'd settled it. Not a knight, huh? Maybe I should name myself Evil Magician or General Omega instead. Then again, I had no idea if I'd even end up using the name. If it didn't work, I could always use Kennel Master instead. Okay, we decided on our fake names then. What do we do next? For now, I'll send a letter to Roxy at the Royal Palace. We'll spend our time gathering information till I can get a reply, I declared. I went to the market the next day, purchased some stationery in an envelope, and started penning my letter to Roxy. I started off with seasonal greetings, asked after her well-being, and then informed her that, although I'd been teleported, I was safe. I told her that I was now in Shiron's capital and wanted to meet her, hoping to rouse her concern and anxiety. I casually mentioned how everyone from Buena Village was missing, and how none of them had been found despite the ongoing search. Then I broached the topic of our maid, Lilia, and closed by emphasizing one final time, because this was important, how worried I was about my family. I also structured the letters so that the first letter of each line, if read vertically, would read, "Help me," with all that I included in the letter, I was sure Roxy would understand what I was implying. I sealed it with wax I pressed an imprint of Roxy's pendant into. I briefly considered sending it under a fake name, but I'd be in trouble if she threw it away thinking, who the hell is that? So I signed it. Your beloved pupil, Rudius Greyrat, who just wants to watch over you. Honestly, Roxy would probably recognize my handwriting if I did use a fake name, but it was also just like her to get careless when it came to something important. I would know if the letter would make it to her until she actually had it in her hands. Schrodinger's Roxy. I pictured Roxy sitting in a box that said, "Please pick me up." Aw, for God's Roxy's sake. You're supposed to flip the box over and hide inside of it. Anyway, that aside, there was no harm in making sure she would read the contents by leaving my real name on the envelope. All right, I'm going to send this letter off. Okay. All right, be careful. The two of them waved at me, Eris with a radiant smile on her face. What a letdown. I'd been so sure one of them would want to follow me. Eh? What are the two of you going to do? I plan to ask around town about your sister, Eris said. That was right. I had said we would be searching for information. Information was power, after all. It would never hurt to try and gather what we could. I actually felt a little abashed at how lax I'd become, trying to move on to the next step without doing that first. All right, then. I'll make sure to hunt down some information too once I'm done sending this letter off. With that, I left the two of them behind. I went to the Adventurers Guild to post the letter. I intended to start searching for their information afterward, but mere minutes later, I realized I was being tailed. At first, I thought it was Regard monitoring me, probably thinking I might get in trouble if left to my own devices. That didn't make sense after what had happened in the last few months, though. He would have joined me rather than tail me in secret. Besides, his ability to tail people was second to none. If it were truly him following me, there was no way I would have noticed. Figured it wasn't Eris either. She was terrible at shadowing people. I would have noticed her the second I stepped out of the inn, and she preferred to silently stick right behind me rather than skulk in the shadows anyway. So who was it? Was there someone in this country who had a grudge against me? I couldn't think of a soul. Besides, I'd only just arrived yesterday. It was likely I would stir up some trouble in the future, but I hadn't bothered anyone yet. Was this connected to something I did on the demon continent? Would someone really follow me all the way here for revenge? Unlikely, but maybe they were a survivor from the Sandport smuggling group who had spotted me by chance. Maybe they were planning to seize the opportunity to finish me off. No, the most likely explanation was that they had absolutely no connection to me at all. When I turned the corner, I caught a glimpse of a small figure ducking in the shadows. It was a child. Maybe one of the neighborhood children decided to pretend I was a bad guy and tail me. Or maybe it was an orphan who was planning to swipe my wallet. If I hid somewhere, they might panic and pursue me, and I could jump out and scare them. No, wait. This world had races like halflings who only looked small. I couldn't let my guard down. I decided I would give them a slip. With that in mind, I took a right at two intersections and then entered a slightly narrow alleyway. I got the sudden feeling that something was wrong, a sensation like something rising from the depths of my throat. Brushing it aside, I used magic to create a wall of earth. A 3-meter wall rose up, sealing the alley behind me. I heard hurried footsteps on the other side as my stalker ran towards the wall, followed by the sound of something slapping weakly against it. I'd gone pretty deep in the winding alleyways to lose that kid. Now, which way back to the main road? I felt a little like a lost child. Unlike the grid layout in the Milishion, even the major thoroughfares in this town didn't run straight. Even someone with a good sense of direction, like me, was beginning to get lost. I suppose that if it came to it, I could always use magic to boost myself onto a roof. Wait, hang on. This alley was just like the one in the vision the man god gave me. Ah, I realized what the strange feeling from the moment ago had been. It was deja vu. I'd just been on this place before. Uh, Turning on my heel, I ran back down the winding alley. I got turned around at a T-junction, but managed to retrace my steps on the wall of earth I'd created. No, stop! I heard a girl scream. Give it back! I put my hand against the solid structure and channeled my mana into it. Using earth magic, I weakened the wall's composition while simultaneously using wind magic to trigger a shockwave. With a booming crash, the whole thing crumbled and fell away. Before me was the vision the man god had showed me. A soldier roughly seized the lone girl's hand, while another held up some paper he had taken from her, shredding it to pieces. That's my father! Don't tear that up! The girl screamed. Amidst the echoing of her protests, the soldiers looked my way in confusion. What? Who the hell are you? The girl had a face that resembled Lilia's, with Paul's brown hair pulled back into a ponytail. She was wearing a baggy maid's outfit. Her face, which would have normally been lighthearted and gleeful, was contorted with tears and streaming snot. The soldiers who had been glaring at her with obscene looks on their faces. Wait, no, that wasn't right. They looked like they pitied her. Were they doing this out of duty rather than because they wanted to? Who are you? State your name. I'm that girl's, I almost said brother, but stopped myself. I wasn't supposed to give him away my real name. I am the Knight of the Shadow Moon. What part of you is a knight? You're obviously a magician. Ugh. Damn it, next time I was definitely going with evil magician instead. Listen up, kid. It's nice that you want to play hero, but we're soldiers from the palace. This little girl just got lost, so we came to escort her home. They clearly considered me nothing more than a mischievous child. I was sure they were lying about their intentions, but there was a troubled look on the other soldier's face, as he regarded Aisha, who was still sobbing. Whatever was going on in the palace to result in Lilia and Aisha being detained, it didn't necessarily mean the soldiers in the rank and file were bad guys, too. Maybe I should try to talk to them? But you guys tore up the letter she was holding. That's, well, how to explain it? Adults have their reasons. Uh-huh. Adults had lots of reasons. Ah! Aisha found an opening and smacked the soldier's hand away. She hid herself behind me and clung to my waist, her face covered in tears and snot. Please help. Looking at her helpless expression and frantic demeanor, I suddenly didn't care if I made enemies with this kingdom or not. Those guys, look, my letter, door up. I had absolutely no idea what she was trying to say through her sobbing, but I could tell she was desperate. Okay, let's put an end to this. I was an adult on the inside. I couldn't keep up the charade of a child playing at being a hero. Without warning, I lifted my hand and silently sent a stone cannon flying at the soldiers. Mm. The man I had aimed at instantly whipped out his sword and intercepted the cannon. Whoa, that was some reaction speed. Water god style, huh? I was going to make things difficult. But stone cannon wasn't the only spell I knew. As long as I had some distance, this would be easy. Even though you're the first person to ever avoid my stone cannon, I thought. A magician who can use magic without incantations? Then, could he be the one? Call for backup. Okay, I created a pit beneath the feet of the soldier who was about to try and run away. Whoosh! At the same time, I fired stone cannons in rapid succession to divert the other soldiers' attention. As I did that, I told Aisha, "We're going to run. Can you do it?" Yeah, she nodded, even though through her sobbing. Very good, very good. All I had to do was knock this one unconscious and could make our escape. Tweet! Or, hold on. Oh, can I do it? I can't whistle. Twee! No sooner than I thought that than a high-pitched noise like a bird's cry echoed throughout around me. It came from the hole I'd opened up. A whistle. The other soldier was blowing an alarm whistle. Moments later, from all around, both close by and far away, other whistles joined the chorus. Tweet, tweet. Each one sounded slightly different, probably to let people identify their exact locations. Once my opponent saw that I had stopped launching stone cannons at him, he yelled, "We've created a blockade around this area. More soldiers will be here in a moment. Cease your futile struggle and hand over the girl. We won't hurt you." This area was about to be swarmed. However, I still had a card up my sleeve. Aisha, hold on tight. Huh? Don't let go, no matter what. Despite her confusion, Aisha wrapped her arms around my waist and squeezed. I grabbed her shirt in my left hand and channeled mana into my right. Then I conjured an earth lance with a flattened tip at my feet and used it like a catapult to launch us in the sky. What? Uh, See you later, losers. Incidentally, I broke both my legs when I landed. I was definitely never doing that again. Chapter 4. There is no God. Aisha cried for some time after we made our escape. Big sobs that shook her whole body. She even peed herself. I understood how she felt. If a couple of scary men had grabbed my arm and threatened me, I'd probably be shaking too. Not enough to pee myself, though. Those two soldiers were probably more gentlemanly than most, but I'd have to have been terrifying experience for a 5 or 6-year-old child. Age gaps felt more pronounced than the younger you were. High schoolers could be as intimidating as adults to grade schoolers, and the soldiers actually had been adults. At least I wanted to believe that was the reason she was crying, not the crack of both my legs breaking when we landed. I quickly used healing magic to fix them up, but that definitely hurt. Currently, I was avoiding mention of her little accident while silently washing her underwear. We were back at the inn. Eris and Richard were both gone when we made it back, and they'd said they were going to hunt down information, so they probably wouldn't return until evening. Here I was, having yet another unusual experience. Just moments ago, Aisha had peeled off her small baggy maid outfit. Once she shed her soaked underwear, I wiped down her underdeveloped nethers with a moistened towel and gave her one of the shirts I normally wore. I was left with a wooden pail, some soap, and a young girl's panties. A young sobbing girl peed herself in bed next to me, clad only in a bagging shirt after stripping her naked, missing her underwear. My former self would have been incredibly turned on by the situation. Any dude who found himself in such a situation would be right. Oh, why didn't I give her fresh underwear to put on? That's obvious. I didn't have any for her. I'd been instructed never to touch Eris's panties after all, and no matter how urgent the situation was, I couldn't break what was one of Dead End's cardinal rules. The thought alone was terrifying. Reacher wouldn't save me if I broke that rule. I could use my demon eye to try and run, but Eris would be pissed for at least 3 days. If she did manage to punch me while I was defenseless, she'd deform my face so bad I wouldn't be able to taste food for 3 days. Good. Granted, I'd healed myself well before 3 days passed. Anyway, back to the story. The situation was such that it wouldn't be surprising if my inner beast started howling, yet my heart was as calm as the still surface of a lake. Forget being aroused, there wasn't even a ripple in the water. It was as polished, as motionless as a mirror. That was odd. I was troubled by Aisha's endless sobbing, but I didn't feel the least bit aroused. Had I become some holy man while I wasn't paying attention, or grown so terrified of rousing Eris' wrath that my pocket monster was now incapable of gauging battle? Had I locked away my own memories to avoid facing my terror? No, that couldn't be it. You okay down there, right? Or you're okay down there, right, little buddy? Those troublesome thoughts preoccupied me as I washed and dried Aisha's plain linen panties, which weren't sexy in the least, and maid uniform, which seemed to be made of high quality fabric. I handed them over to Aisha, who had finally stopped crying at some point, and she happily changed into them. Even watching her do that didn't arouse me at all. Come to think of it, I'd never been interested in Xena's breasts either. I hadn't much cared for about either gender or age in my previous incarnation, but apparently my current body's family were off limits in this life. Life sure was a mysterious thing. My name is, oh my god, okay. My name is Aisha Greyrat. Thank you very much. Dressed in her maid uniform, Aisha bowed to me, her ponytail swayed with emotion. Ponytails really were amazing. Eris occasionally pulled hers back into one, but hers made her look like a girl in a sports club. Aisha, on the other hand, looked more like an incredibly adorable doll. Her eyes were bloodshot, though, so maybe more like a cursed doll. Sir Knight, if you hadn't saved me, they would have dragged me away back there. When she called me Sir Knight, I remembered that I had introduced myself as the Knight of the Shadow Moon. A tendril of sweat trickled down my back. Maybe I'd gotten too carried away in my conversation with Eris. When I thought about how that name could be used to make fun of me 10 years from now, I kind of regretted using it. Really, thank you so much. She bowed deeply again. Just how old was she again? About 6? She was well mannered for one so young. Since you saved me, I have but one selfish request to make of you. Sure. Please give me a pen and paper so I can write a letter. Also, please tell me where the Adventurers Guild is. I appreciate your help. When she started or finished speaking, Aisha bowed her head again. At least she knew how to say please when she asked for help. She was a clever little girl. Ah, that was right. Paul had mentioned something about Lilia giving Aisha an extra rigorous education, hadn't he? That's all you need? Do you have any money? I have no money. Weren't you taught that you need to buy or needs money to send letters and to buy pen and paper? It was critical to teach kids the importance of money from a young age. I doubt Lilia would skip something that important, even if there were some things children shouldn't be taught until they got older. My mother taught me that if a girl like me looks up at someone with a pleading look in my eyes and says, I want to send a letter to my father, then I won't have to spend any money. Aha, Lilia, you scoundrel. Were you teaching your daughter to use her femininity as a weapon? As I realized that, Aisha's mannerism started to feel very staged. No, seriously, just what was Lilia teaching her? I've been trying to contact my father for a long time, but the people in the castle tell me no and won't let me send any letters. I'd already heard that Lilia was being detained. Now I knew that they weren't letting her or Aisha send letters either. Maybe things were pretty serious here. When the man god told me I needed to save them, I suspected that this was a situation where Paul was being cuckolded. Is there anyone else you could ask for help besides your father? There isn't. For instance, someone your mother knows, like a girl who's a little bit older than you and has blue hair, or perhaps a brother of yours that should be out there somewhere? I asked, completely nonchalant. Aisha furrowed her brows. She had a look of dismay on her face, but why? I have a brother, but I can't ask him for help. Why the heck not? He just saved you a moment ago, didn't he? But do you mind if I ask what your reasoning is? Reason? Sure. My mother told me about my brother in great detail. Okay, Aisha continued. But I couldn't believe any of it. Like being able to use intermediate tier magic at 3 and becoming a king tier water magician at 5, and then on top of all that, becoming tutor to the daughter of the region's liege lord? There's nothing believable about that. She's definitely lying. Well, I couldn't blame her for thinking that. But maybe if you meet him, you'll see he's actually a good older brother? Not likely. Why not? My mom had this little box that she treasured back home. She always told me not to touch it, so I asked why. Apparently, it had something really important to my brother inside it. A box. Come to think of it, I felt like I'd heard something similar from Paul before. Aisha went on. One time when my mother wasn't around, I sneaked a peek. What do you think was inside of it? And what do you think was inside, or was it inside of it? I don't know. What? Panties. Girls' panties. Judging by the size, a pretty young girl's panties at that. According to my calculations, the girl that owned them was probably 10 years old. For a moment, I thought maybe my older brother was actually a sister, but they would have been too big for him. So there was only one person they could possibly belong to, and that's my brother's tutor. He was only 4 or 5 when he was already saving an older girl's panties for the future. Calculations. Wait, hold on just a second here. This kid was way too smart for her age. The heck? She was just 5 or 6, right? Maybe you're miscalculating? I suggested. Nope. I gathered more information from my mother. It seems my brother would peek in on that girl while she was bathing, and he'd also watch my parents while they were getting it on. My mother was trying to cover it up, but I knew there was no mistaking it. My brother's a pervert. Pervert. Pervert or pervert. There was no mistake. My brother's a pervert. And for kicks once more, a pervert. Okay, stop it, I thought. My mental capacity is already at 0. Oh, okay, so your brother is a pervert. That's really rough. Huh. Huh. I brought this on myself, but really I was in shock. I never imagined something like this would. Damn, now I understood. This was why the man guy told me not to use my real name. By the way, Mr. Knight, what's your real name? Oh, it's a secret. On the streets, they call me the Kennel Master of Dead End, I answered, keeping a cool and composed look on my face. It was probably best for now if I held off on revealing I was her older brother. Ooh, Mr. Kennel Master, is it? How cool! I guess you can use summoning magic and stuff, right? Nope. I said, all I can do is exert control over 2 very ferocious dogs. That's amazing! Aisha had a sparkle in her eyes and gazed at me, almost like a puppy. A puppy that was being deceived, that is. That made my heart hurt a bit, but if I revealed I was her older brother, she might not be willing to listen to me. All I had to do was hide my real identity until I could dashingly rescue Lilia. Once I did that, it would greatly improve her perception of me. All right, I'm going to rescue your mother. Huh? She stared at me wide eyed when I made that declaration. But, just leave it to me. That was how Aisha and I met. She had the absolute worst impression of me, but not quite as bad as Norn's, considering I'd punched her father right in front of her eyes. Right now, she thought I was a pervert for holding on to Roxy's panties, but she'd eventually come to understand that sometimes people needed something to hold on to. That aside, why would she equate keeping panties with being a pervert anyway? She wasn't old enough to link underwear to sexual desire yet. She wasn't even old enough to understand what sexual arousal was. If someone was teaching weird things to my little sister, they wouldn't go unpunished. Uh, by the way, Mr. Kennelmaster. Yes? How come you know my name? We'll leave out the part where I scrambled for an excuse until I finally spotted her name embroidered on the edge of her clothes. Aisha told me what had happened in the past few years. She struggled with the details, resulting in a poor explanation, but I got the gist of what she was saying. It seemed she and Lilia had been teleported to Sharon Kingdom's royal palace. Their sudden appearance was suspicious, and they were both arrested. Lilia had tried to explain, but the powers that be decided to keep them both confined to the palace. Aisha didn't understand why or what would happen next, but she did know that for some reason they wouldn't even let her send a letter. Apparently, they hadn't done anything bad to Lilia, or at least nothing that that left visible marks. Who knew what might be going on at night while Aisha wasn't aware of it? Lily was getting on in years, so hopefully the possibility of people going out of their way to violate her was low. It was strange that they were still being detained 2.5 years later after they were teleported here. Had Lilia really failed to correct the misunderstanding in all that time? There had to be some other factors I wasn't aware of. Excuse me. In the midst of all this, Aisha was trying to send a letter to Paul asking for help. She'd gotten lost and figured that if she followed an adventurer, she'd eventually get to the guild. Apparently, that adventurer was me. Aisha hadn't mentioned Roxy. Was she really not trying to help Lilia? No, it was possible that things were only this bad because Roxy was helping from the shadows. Whatever the case, all I could do now was wait for Roxy's reply. The man god had told me to send her a letter. Now that I had done that, the rest of the puzzle pieces should fall into place. Oh, so you came all the way from the Demon Continent, huh? Aisha was anxious to hear more about me. Yeah, I was caught up in the displacement incident in Vitola as well. And what did you do before that? I was a home tutor. I was teaching magic to a noble's daughter. Oh, really? Where at? Roa, I said. That's the same place as my brother. Two of you might have passed each other at some point. Yeah. The possibility is as minute as a grain of salt, but it's there. That aside, it seemed Aisha had learned a lot from Lilia. General common sense, etiquette, wisdom that would help her in her daily life, how to be a maid, etc. It seemed suspicious to me that she could understand all of that at her age, but at the very least, she knew it well enough to be able to explain it to me. Her powers of speech were advanced for her age, too. Perhaps she was just pretending to act like an adult, but she was still a clever one, seriously. Ever since she was young, she had the ability to soak up whatever she was taught like a sponge. I wondered what she would be like as she got older. Could I really maintain my dignity as an older brother? If you were teaching a noble's daughter, maybe her family was in contact with my brother's employer. Have you heard anything? No, I stuttered. I'm afraid I have no knowledge of him. Oh, all right. I was hoping to hear what your impressions were of my brother. Uh, the only thing I ever heard was that the young miss at the Liege Lord's manor was very violent and impossible to manage. Much as I was tempted to drop some more information, Aisha was eventually going to discover I was her brother. I didn't want her realizing that I deliberately talked about myself while pretending to be someone else. She asked me various things about the Demon Continent, and I answered in detail. I'd been worried I wouldn't know what to talk about with a child this young, but Aisha was so smart that we never ran out of topics. Strangely enough, I found myself genuinely enjoying what was basically my first real conversation with my little sister. A few hours later, perhaps exhausted, Aisha fell asleep. Eris and Regia returned after the sun had set, looking weary. Apparently, they'd gone all the way to the slums to gather information, and a lot had happened, including a scuffle. They'd gotten in a fight again? They looked apologetic, but this was nothing new, and I wasn't going to ask for details. Everyone messed up sometimes, even me. As long as we had each other's backs, it was fine. I told them how I'd met Aisha, how Lilia was locked away in a castle, how a lot of things about the situation seemed awfully suspicious. While I was at it, I told them I was concealing my name from her, too. I impressed upon them the importance of keeping my real identity a secret. Why are you being so evasive about this? Eris asked. Apparently, someone has fed her some misguided information about me. I want to show her my good side so I can correct her perceptions of me. Well, I think you're cool just the way you are. Eris, I tried to give her a grin that read, thanks for saying such sweet things about me, but when I did, Eris took a step back. Ugh. Why do you get that creepy look or grin on your face when I compliment you? Apparently, my trademark look was a creepy one. That was a bit of a shock. Someone please give me a new face. Anyway, If that's what's going on, then let's attack the castle, Eris exclaimed, totally ready and willing to throw down. It's been a while since I stormed the castle. Even Regent was hefting his spear as if raring to go. I hurried to cool their jets. No, let's just wait for a reply to my letter for now. Eris looked unenthused at my words. As usual, she just wanted to go wild. It certainly would have been simpler to dispense with subtlety and launch an attack on the castle, but that might land Roxy in trouble. And I wanted to be able to look her in the eye when we met. First, we needed to know exactly what was going on. It definitely wasn't just because I wanted to see Roxy, just so you know. For that, the day came to a close. The next day, a knight came into the inn just as the clock was about to strike noon. The armor they wore was similar in the style to that worn by Aisha's would-be kidnappers, albeit with higher quality. I had the others wait in the room while I went down to the lobby by myself to deal with them. Are you Lord Rudius? Yes. I am part of the 7th Prince's Imperial Guard. My name is Ginger York. I wondered why a member of the Imperial Guard was here. Then again, Roxy was tutoring a prince. A pleasure to make your acquaintance. I'm Rudius Greyrat. The knight was a woman, and had come alone. She watched me without a flicker of emotion as she gave me a knightly introduction and bowed. I returned it with a nobleman-style bow. I wasn't actually sure what the appropriate greeting was, but as long as I conveyed my sincerity, that was enough. Lady Roxy bids you come see her. Please accompany me to the royal palace. She mentioned nothing about the events that had transpired the day before. I hadn't hidden my face during the dust-up, but it seemed I hadn't been identified. I hesitated. What was I supposed to do with Aisha? If I took her with me, they would know I was the one who attacked those soldiers with my stone cannon. I was just going to have to leave her behind. I could apologize to soldiers once I had Roxy to help. With that decided, I told Aisha not to leave the room under any circumstance and entrusted her protection to Regent and Eris. Since I was going to meet Roxy, I double-checked my appearance before I left. My hair was combed and I was in my usual robes. Oh, right, I thought. I should get her a box of sweets. I wondered what I should buy since I hadn't seen her in such a long time. It was then I happened to spot the ultra-unpopular Regent figurine at the bottom of my tool bag. I recalled that in one of her letters, she talked about seeing a figurine of herself. It might be interesting to show her this one and tell her that I've been the creator behind that one, too. You're being awfully thorough about this, Eris commented. It's been a while since I last saw my master. You're going to formally introduce me to her, right? Yeah, of course. I'll make sure to do that once everything is settled. I finished the last of my preparations. Are you sure you're fine by yourself? Regent asked in a worried tone. I often ran into trouble when I was left on my own, so I understood his concern. No problem. If anything comes up, I'll fly right back here. That was just a figure of speech, of course. I was never going to take such drastic action that I broke both of my legs again. Mr. Kennelmaster, Aisha said. Don't worry. Just leave this to me. She looked anxious, so I patted her on the head. She drew her lips into a line and nodded. That's a good girl, I thought. Led by the knight Ginger, I started towards the royal palace. We moved quickly along the edge of the main road, bustling with carriages going to and fro. The road had so many twists and turns and sometimes was so narrow that carriages couldn't freely pass by one another. I assumed this was countermeasure in case of an enemy attack. I'd heard of a town in the Minnow region back in Japan that had streets like this. Excuse me. Ginger seemed quite taciturn, so I didn't speak unless necessary. If I asked her a question, however, she would respond. She was always polite. Okay, up next is this one. An energetic voice boomed through the air. I turned my head in its direction. Who's this? She used to be a knight from the country of Washawa. This is a battle-ready slave. She's a bit feisty, but she's skilled. 3 gold coins. A slave market occupied an area facing the main road. There, on a tall platform, was a line of slaves. There were 3 humans and 1 beast folk with rabbit ears. 2 of them were men and 2 were women. All of them had their upper bodies exposed. Even from this distance, I could see their skin shining. It was probably oiled to make them look more attractive. I was sure the beast folk had been taken from the great forest, and I had no means or even obligation to help them. But I did furrow my brow. I squinted at the Washawa woman's bosom and felt my lower half react. I thought it strange it hadn't reacted to Aisha, but it seemed my little friend down there was still serving active duty. I could hear the merchant beside the slaves explaining various things about them, but I couldn't make out the particulars. They were probably talking about each slave's selling points, such as their abilities and country of origin. After a few moments, the voices from the crowd grew louder. It was an auction. If Lily and Aisha had been unlucky, they might have ended up alongside those slaves. Their current circumstances didn't seem all that bad by comparison, not that I could say for certain yet. I realized Ginger was looking at the slave market with a wrinkle in her brow. Her duty was to maintain public order in the country. Perhaps seeing people doing such unscrupulous business out in the open bothered her. I thought the slave market was further inside, I said, by way of making conversation. The slave markets we'd seen had mostly been nestled further back within the cities. Slavery wasn't seen as a bad thing in and of itself in this world, but this was the first time I'd ever seen slaves sold this openly on a main street. Indeed. These types of auctions are always conducted further within the city. Then I suppose today must be some kind of event or something? No. Yesterday, some adventurers apparently got into a fight in the area where the slave markets usually are. Since that location can no longer be used, they've temporarily relocated here. A fight at the slave market, huh? Eris and Regent had said they'd been involved in a fight. I had a feeling those two were connected, but it would only cause trouble if I brought it up. Pardon me, Ginger said as she suddenly grabbed me under the arms and lifted me up. Please watch proceedings from here. Thank you. She was giving me a better vantage point to see what was going on. She sure was perceptive. You definitely couldn't call her a beauty, but with her powers of observation, I was sure she'd find a nice husband someday. Lady Roxy would also hop around trying to get a look or a good look wherever there was a crowd, or whenever there was a crowd. Really? Yes. Although she always looked conflicted when I lifted her up like this. I tried to picture it, Roxy hopping up and down while complaining, I can't really see. Then I pictured Ginger, with her good intentions, being unable to just stand by and watch. Then finally Roxy again looking disheartened as she said, Please put me down. You've held her up before like this before? I asked. Yes, and she got mad and told me to put her down immediately. I knew it. Where did you grab her? But where? The same way I did with you just now. She reached under my arms when she lifted me up just a moment ago. What was it like? It was just like I said, Ginger repeated. She looked conflicted and told me to put her down immediately. What I wanted to know was what her skin felt like, but oh well. Please put me down, I said. Let's hurry on. There wasn't anything particularly interesting happening. All I could see were the slaves about to be sold standing in an iron cage. We turned back towards the palace and hastened our pace. What's my teacher doing at the Royal Palace? I asked, thinking I'd found something we had in common to talk about. Usually she's teaching the prince, but when she's not busy, she joins the soldiers for training. I seem to recall Roxy had mentioned something along those lines in the letter when she sent me when I was in Roa. Ah, yes, I heard how you conducted training under the premise that your opponent was a magician. According to Roxy's letter, the soldiers were training to deflect magic that she would throw at them while they were engaged in melee combat against one another. The principle was that learning to deflect magic that came at you suddenly during training would help you escape death when you actually face such circumstances on the battlefield. That's right, or that's correct. We are all intermediate tier water god style sword fighters already, but thanks to Lady Roxy, we can now deflect magic when it's suddenly thrown at us too. So that was why the knight from yesterday was able to deflect my stone cannon. It'd been a shock to see a no-name soldier defend themselves against my attack, but it made sense now that I knew it was thanks to Roxy's teachings. We continued talking about Roxy for a little while after that. We talked about how it warmed the soldiers' hearts when they saw Roxy's face go pale after she burned a rug in the middle of her magic lesson. Then we talked about how her face turned pale again when a meal included bell peppers and how she swallowed them whole without chewing once. I've heard about you as well, Lord Rudius, Ginger said. Yeah? What did she say about me? She told us that from a young age you were a genius who could cast magic without the use of incantations. But my teacher said that? I asked. Lady Roxy bragged often about you. She said that she honestly felt like she wasn't even qualified to teach someone of your caliber. Heh, I chuckled. That's an exaggeration. We eventually reached the castle as we talked. It was quite a large one, though not as big as the Kishirisu Castle in Rikarisu or the White Palace in Milashion. It was about the same size as the one Eris and her family lived in. In other words, the country was about the size of a single region, the Ashura Kingdom. Way to go, Ashura Kingdom. You sure don't let a man down. Ginger gave a small bow to the guard at the gate. In response, he snapped stiffly to attention. Thank you for your dedicated service. Come this way. I started heading straight ahead, but Ginger guided me aside. We circled the castle and went through what looked like a back door. My apologies for this. Only nobles are allowed through the front entrance. I understand. We came into what resembled a guard room. There were two long desks with numerous soldiers sitting at them, amusing themselves with what looked like a card game. The second they saw Ginger, they immediately left their seats and stood at attention. Thank you for your dedicated service. Ginger bowed again slightly before heading deeper inside. I watched the men out of the corner of my eye as I followed her. Miss Ginger, are you someone important? Among the knights, I rank about 12. 12? It was hard for me to tell whether that was high or low ranking. If it included all the hundreds of knights within this country, then it probably wasn't low. This way. Ginger led us way deeper and deeper into the palace. Her steps grew increasingly cautious as she went. She never climbed any stairs, but simply led me down to one final hall and stopped outside a door deep within the core of the castle. This must be Roxy's room, I thought. It was located in an awfully deserted area of the palace, but that somehow seemed appropriate for her. Ginger looked at what I had with me and held out her hand. Excuse me. Please hand over your staff and other belongings. Oh, sure. How kind of her to even go so far as to act like a doorman. Ginger took my things and then pounded her fist against the door. It's Ginger. I brought Lord Rudius with me. Enter. It was a man's voice that responded. Before I could process the doubt I felt at that, Ginger immediately opened the door and motioned me inside. Obediently, I went inside. Oh, so this is Rudius, huh? Seated before me, looking self-important, was a boy. Sorry. Oh, so this is Rudius, huh? Seated before me, looking self-important, was a boy. He looked like a small barrel as he arrogantly reclined in his chair. Not just in terms of height, his arms and legs looked short too, almost like what you get if you combine a halfling and a dwarf. The only thing conspicuously large about him was his head, which was adult size. His face resembled that of an otaku, giving me a sense that the two of us were brethren. It wasn't an attractive face, though. Standing on the boy's side were two maids. One of them looked familiar and the other didn't. We'll call the latter of the two Maid A. She seemed to be in her late 20s and was fairly normal looking. As for Maid B, her face looked exactly like Lilia's. Actually, no, that was Lilia. 5 years had passed, so she looked a bit older than I remembered. That was no surprise, given she was getting on in years and on top of having been through the stress of the displacement incident. Mm. Lily was in a chair. There were ropes tied around her and her mouth was gagged. I didn't see Roxy anywhere. Huh? What the heck is this? Confused, I looked around. I thought Roxy was going to be here, but that she was going to explain what was going on. Drop him! At the sound of the boy's voice, the floor beneath me vanished. By the time I realized where I was, I found myself trapped within a magic circle. The moment the boy gave the signal, the ground beneath my feet fell away and I dropped through a hole in the floor. It took me several seconds to realize what had happened. I was in a small room now, about 6 tatami mats wide. There was a magic circle drawn on the floor, faint light radiating from it. Immediately, I tried to use an earth lance to lift me back up into the room above. Huh? But the magic never happened. I tried again, channeling a greater amount of mana into my feet in order to conjure an earthen pillar, but nothing happened. That was strange. I could definitely feel the mana was leaving my body. It was probably the work of the magic circle that surrounded me. A barrier, huh? I reached out to the edge of the circle and found myself touching what felt like a wall. I tried punching it, but it didn't even shake. I wasn't getting out of here. Still, I didn't feel a sense of panic. Perhaps my mind didn't fully grasp the situation I was in. It's futile. Futile, I say. That's a king tier barrier that I had created so I could trap Roxy. Someone like you has no hope of breaking free of it. The rotund boy from a moment ago came waddling down the steps in the corner of the room. He stood in front of me, a great big grin stretched across his face as he triumphantly leaned back. And you are? I asked. My name is Pax. Pax Chiron. Pax? Oh, right. The seventh prince. What was he planning to do by trapping Roxy in a barrier where she couldn't use her magic? Wait. In her letter, Roxy had described him as being similar to me. I was a gentleman, so it only stood to reason that he was going to do something very gentlemanly. A gentlemanly act of violence. I like that look on your face, Rudius Grey Rat, he chortled when he saw my frustration. I put on a poker face and took a deep breath. Calm down, I told myself. Just calm down. So I've fallen into a trap. I understand. I apologize formally for attacking those soldiers yesterday, but before that, please call Roxy here. I used to be her pupil. She can confirm my identity, and I can call my lawyer and we can have a proper trial. Roxy's not here. Roxy wasn't there. What? I was even more shocked by his words than I thought I would be. Roxy wasn't here. That meant God wasn't here. There was no God. No, that couldn't be possible. Did not the great mathematician Euler claim that God existed? Did he not receive an order from Catherine the Great and magnificently offer up proof that God was real? God did exist. I would do the same and prove that God existed myself. No, God is here. What? God? Pax had a dumbfounded look on his face. That's right, God. Make no mistake. If God wasn't here, there would be a holy war. Bring it on. So you're praying to God now. That's the correct decision. So it's already too late for you. That's true. I calmed down by now, so it's time to dispense with the jokes. So judging by what you said a moment ago, Roxy isn't in this country anymore? Correct. You're going to be the bait that lures her back here. If you mean she's going to swallow me up, then that's been my lifelong dream. I responded offhandedly, trying to think. Roxy wasn't in this country, but the person wanted to get his hands on her. Why? Was he the reason she ran away? Just as I thought that, Pax launched his next words at me. I was surprised when I read your letter. I never thought Roxy's lover would try coming to this country. What? Roxy has a lover? Seriously? I never wrote anything like that in my letter, though. You mean you're not? Pax asked. Don't be ridiculous. That's unthinkable. I'm an unworthy apprentice. There's no way such a relationship would develop between us. I shook my head violently. I was actually incredibly happy he'd made that assumption, happy enough to make me want to wiggle with glee. I wanted to wiggle around like a certain rare reindeer. I wanted to wiggle around like a certain person living with a metal monster, but I forcibly restrained myself. Well, even if you're not her lover, she'll still come for her pupil. Will she really? I asked. She will.
Lilia may have been too weak to use as bait, but for you, the pupil whose praises she wouldn't stop singing, she'll definitely come. Then when she does, it'll be the end of her as a woman. She'll live the rest of her life as my sex slave. I'll make her give birth to 5 of my heirs. Excuse me, can I just ask one more thing? What? Ah, yes. I'll be sure to rape her the first time right before your eyes. Then I'll do it a second time after cut off your head and see her face filled with despair. Boy, this kid has some wild delusions. Prior to coming here, I said, I couldn't find any information about Lilia, so how's Roxy going to know that I've been taken captive? Pax froze. Huh. Well, she's incredibly capable. I'm sure she'll catch wind of it somewhere. Huh. So it'd be fine because Roxy was capable. Perhaps she'd be able to find information that I hadn't been able to, but the odds seem unlikely. But don't you think it'd be better to... Oh, hold on. Oh, boy. But don't you think it would be better to let that information out, or to let that information out in the world? Not that I wanted to see Roxy get raped, but if he had did that, my word might get to Paul's ears. I'm not going to fall for that. You're under the patronage of one of Ashira's high-ranking nobles, aren't you? I'd be making enemies of the Boreas family if they knew what I was holding you, or that I was holding you or Lilia in captivity, wouldn't it? You would? Something strange here. Well, old man Soros might try to help if he heard I've been taken captive, but what did that have to do with Lilia? Lilia also tried sending letters numerous times, as if I would allow her to call for help. Why in the world was he not letting her write for help if the whole point was reeling Roxy in? Ah, I get it, I thought. He's a moron. Besides, he added, I can just hand that information straight to her. You can? I asked, doubtful. I've been searching for her for the past 2 years, but I haven't found her yet. Still, one day I will. She stands out wherever she goes. Just because she stood out didn't mean that he'd ever find her. She'd written in her letter that he was similar to me, that he had talent. Did that just mean her impression of me was this bad? It looks like you've given up. I don't care if you're a magician who can cast spells without voicing them. You stand no chance against me. There's no way I was going to lose to this guy. I glared at him. Ooh, I like the look in your eyes. Makes me shiver. I hope you'll keep that look until the very end. I'm looking forward to it so much. Roxy, don't keep me waiting. He sounded like a little boy pining for attention as he mounted the stairs, disappearing through the hole in the ceiling. There's no way in hell she's coming, I thought to myself. Hey, who said you could remove Lilia's gag? I'm sorry, but she seemed like she had something to say. That's not your decision to make. Please, Your Highness, I don't care what you do to me, but please spare Lord Rudius. Shut up. I don't need anything from an old hag like you. I heard a cry from the stairs above, accompanied by a dry slapping sound. Did you just slap Lilia? Anyway, have you still not found Aisha? Your Highness, we're still searching for her. Urgh. What does the man who kidnapped her look like? I could hear the irritation in Pax's voice. Apparently they were talking about what happened yesterday. This wasn't good. I hadn't concealed my face, so I was sure they figured out it was me immediately. I put the location of the inn in my letter too. But oh well, so what if they found me out? Reger and Eris were at the inn. As long as Reger was there, I was sure he'd take care of things. Eris's offensive skills he had established their own reputation too. According to the report, he called himself the Knight of the Shadow Moon. He's a huge, brawny man who laughs loudly as he jumps from roof to roof like a pervert. If it's someone who stands out that much, why haven't you caught him yet? Damn it, you're all so useless. Yes, sir. My apologies. Hey, wait a minute. Excuse me, Mr. Soldier. Please report the facts properly. Just what part of my body was brawny and muscular? Wait, no. Perhaps the inaccurate report had been given out of kindness. Maybe they were trying to help Aisha escape. They didn't seem like bad people when I met them, after all. Okay, good job, Mr. Soldier. According to the report, we did tear up the letter she wrote, and she can rewrite that letter as many times she wants. A high-ranking noble isn't going to take action just because of a child's letter. Shouldn't we just forget about her? No, no, no. Search for her. Don't you care what happens to your family? I'll dispatch a search party immediately. Then came the sound of frantic footsteps. Judging by the conversation, did that mean Ginger's family had been taken hostage? Throw Lilia in her usual chambers. Yes, sir. Or, yes, sir. Lord Brudius, I swear I'll save you. Shut up, as if I allow you to do that. You knew Roxy too, didn't you? I'll have you beheaded in front of that impudent brat as well. Smack. I heard another dry slapping sound, followed by something dragged across the floor. Rudius, I'm never going to let you go. Or, hold on. Oh, that's him. Rudius, I'm never going to let you go. When I followed the voice and looked up, I saw Pax's creepy face grinning down at me. Then a lid was slid over the hole above. Quiet settled over the room as I was left with only the faint light of the magic circle as company. Phew. I felt somewhat dumbfounded. I should have been angry at Lilia being hit, but strangely I didn't feel rage rising up within me. Perhaps it was because the entirety of our interactions prior to that had been comical, or because the man guy already told me she would be saved.
Then again, maybe it was all because of this was a product of Pax's feelings for Roxy, as warped as they might have been. I might have ended up the same way had I been cast aside by her. No, that wasn't it. It was because he did resemble me, the old me, before I was reincarnated. That was why I felt confusion rather than anger. Well then, regardless, I understood the gist of what was going on. Simply put, Pax was the one who had captured Lilia. Then he detained her, using whatever pretext he saw fit, such as claiming she was a spy of a foreign power. As he listened to what she had to say, he'd somehow come to the conclusion that she was associated with Roxy, which was when he devised his plan. He would use Lilia as bait, contact Roxy, and lure her back here. He kept this all a secret for fear of the Grey Rat family, but really, even if the Sura Kingdom found out, Lilia was nothing more than a maid. The secrecy, and the fact that they were unable to relocate Roxy, was why Lilia had been detained for so long. Lilia was surely trying to send Paul a cry for help, but the prince would not allow it. That was why Aisha had escaped the castle in an attempt to try post her letter, only to fail and have her letter shredded. What came afterward was what baffled me. For some reason, the guards were falsifying reports to aid her escape. Did they just hate the prince, or was there another reason involved? It seemed like Ginger's family had been taken hostage, so maybe the other soldiers found themselves in a similar situation, and I'd landed myself perfectly in the middle of their spider web. Did I write to Roxy just as a man god had instructed me? But I did write to Roxy just as the man god had instructed me to. It was probably all part of how things were supposed to end up, right? There was no need for me to panic. Right now, I was doing exactly as I've been told. No. Wait. Had I really done things the way I was supposed to? For instance, I told the soldiers I was the Knight of the Shadow Moon. According to the man god's advice, as long as I told Aisha I was the Kennel Master at Dead End, everything would be fine, but maybe I was supposed to use that name with the soldiers as well? That wasn't my only potential misstep. The same thing happened with the letter. I thought for sure I'd be fine as long as I didn't say my name was Rudius, but if I hadn't written my name on that letter, maybe things wouldn't have ended up like this, or maybe things would have ended up like this. The prince had thought I was just some acquaintance of Roxy's. Perhaps things would have gone or proceeded more peacefully. Crap. I really felt like I screwed things up. No, it was fine. It was still fine, right? This was still within expectations, right? I was worried. For the moment, I decided I would at least try to secure an escape route. 1 sec. Doing that prince's voice fucking sucks. But it's a good voice I think to give him. Hey there. My name is Rudius, and I used to be a shut-in. Currently, I'm checking out a free apartment in the Chiron Kingdom. There's no security deposit and no rent. It's a one-room apartment that provides no meals and doesn't have much in the way of natural lighting. There's no bed provided, and the lack of toilet means you have to resort to the old-fashioned way of pissing your pants. So living here for an extended period will no doubt result in serious illness. At least it's free. It's also reassuringly secure in its construction. Please see for yourself how durable the barrier is. As long as you stay inside of it, magic is nullified and you'll never be able to get out. Even if an A-ranked adventurer like me hits it as hard as they can, the barrier won't budge. It doesn't matter if you're a masterful escape artist. There's no easy way of getting out of this place. Okay, that's the second time I use this joke, so enough of that. I can't get out of here. Someone save me. Regerd, hurry up and save me. Save me, Rui! I felt like Princess Peach waiting for Mario to come for me. I spent an entire day after that trying to remove the barrier. Since I couldn't use magic while I was in it, there was basically nothing I could do. Mostly my attempts consisted of pounding on a wall I couldn't see, trying to scrub at the circle on the floor, and trying to leap up towards a ceiling that was nearly 4 meters above me. I did everything I could, which basically amounted to nothing. If I at least had my staff, I might have been able to smack the ceiling with it. Sadly, I'd given all my things to Ginger before I entered the room. As for magic, I tried numerous spells, but they all fizzled out before they could do anything. Like a shonen protagonist, I decided that if this barrier absorbed mana, then I would unleash as much as I could and destroy it that way. But it didn't seem to have any effect. I could produce mana, but it didn't take any shape. I couldn't use my mana to trigger or change around me. It seemed like I could, but I couldn't. It was like using a lighter in such a strong wind that it blew out every time you clicked it. The gas was there, the spark was there, but there was no fire. Or maybe it was more like the fire appeared out, but it was snuffed out immediately. He said this was a king-tier magical barrier, right? It's incredible. My impatience grew as I realized I couldn't get out of here on my own. The worst came to pass, and Roxy actually came to help me. Falling into Pax's trap in the process, there was nothing I could do to save her. All I would be able to do would be to scream for her to leave me behind. If Eris was the one that got caught instead, I could do nothing but help her either. Once again, I'd be screaming for them to leave me behind, and what if Pax changed his mind and decided that he had me, so he didn't need other hostages, and tried to have Lilia killed? I wanted to believe that everything would be okay, but I hadn't followed the man god's advice perfectly. Maybe I was already way off track. It was a man god we were talking about, though. Maybe he foresaw this. But according to what he said, only Aisha and Lilia would be saved. He hadn't mentioned anyone else. But no, he gave me that advice to earn my trust. It was difficult to believe he'd purposely worded it to be deceptive. Still, even then, negative thoughts kept cutting in and whirling around in my head. Damn it, I thought. I need to hurry up and get out of here. wondering how much time had passed. I felt exhausted. It was the first in a long time that I'd used so much mana. Phew, maybe I should rest for a bit. There was no clock and I couldn't see the sun, so I only had a vague sense of time. My stomach was also empty and had been growling for a little while now. Don't tell me the prince had forgotten about my food, too. Oh, maybe that was the point. Maybe he meant to reduce my food intake and whittle me down until I was as dainty and brittle as a branch. That way it would excite him more when he showed Roxy what I'd become. Just one meal a day then, huh? Or just one meal a day then, huh? That would be terribly unpleasant, given my body was still growing. I couldn't break out of here through strength alone. Maybe I needed to twist this around in my head some more. How did people in my previous world escape from prison? They pretend to be sick or dead, right? Maybe they would temporarily power down the barrier to let a doctor or healer inside. No. It was also possible they'd just leave me to die. They already had another hostage after all. If I were a Hollywood star, I could just strike out as the guard came by on my cell, knock them unconscious, and steal their keys. Sadly, that wasn't possible here. What other methods were left to me? Really, I just needed to get out of here. Maybe I could pretend I was willing to pledge my loyalty to Pax. Truth is, Roxy's been getting on my nerves for a long time now, boss. And actually, I know where her parents are. What do you think about doing it in front of them, eh, boss? If I said it like that, he might actually fall for it, right? He did look like a moron after all. No, let's not. That wasn't possible. Even for me. Roxy, I could abandon every last bit of my own pride, but the one thing I couldn't do was say something bad about Roxy. As I worried over what to do, I suddenly heard something. Footsteps. They were going closer. Probably Pax coming to see how I was doing. The footsteps stopped directly above me. Then they cut across the room and I could hear them come at the top of the stairs. Aha, just as Ginger told me. The man who glided down the steps was someone I'd never seen before. I could tell with one look that he was likely part of the royal family, primarily because of how grandiose his clothing looked. It was black with gold embroidery, and you could tell at once it was expensive. He appeared to be about 20. His face was similar to Pax's, but oval-shaped. Glasses resting above protruding cheekbones, and he was taller and thinner. In other words, he looked like your typical book nerd anime character with opaque glasses. I am Shirone Kingdom's third prince, Sonoba Shirone, he said with a rigid look. Third prince? So that meant he was Pax's older brother. A pleasure to make your acquaintance, I replied. I'm Rudius Greyrat. Hmm. And what brings you here today? Hmm. He nodded in an exaggerated way and hoisted a bag in his hands, a bag I'd seen before. No, wait, that was my bag! He left it on the ground and carefully extracted something from within. It was a figurine of a man wielding a spear. A Regent figurine. Where did you get this demon figurine? He asked as he placed it just outside the barrier. Tell me. I heard from Ginger that you brought it here with you. His tone was very demanding. A demon figurine. I'd brought it with me without much thought. Perhaps carrying a demon figurine was like carrying a false god's idol around these parts. Roxy's figurine had no distinguishable demonic characteristics, but Regard was instantly identifiable because of the jewel on his forehead. How was I supposed to answer this one? At the very least, I was sure I shouldn't say I was the one who made it. I just happened to pick it up when I was traveling on the demon continent. Aha! I knew it must have been a demon that made this. All right. Where exactly did you acquire this? What did the person selling it look like? Do you know who made this? Boy, he was really invested in this. His eyes were gleaming. Who knows? I said. I just saw it and liked it, so I decided to buy it. I don't know any specifics about. What? A dangerous glint of light reflected off his glasses. There was something seriously intimidating about him. He had the eyes of a person who killed before. Oh yeah, the merchant told me something when he sold it to me. He said that if you had that figurine in your possession, you'd be safe even if a spirit attacks you. Just show them that figurine and chant at them, Regard loves children. Regard loves children. And suddenly the spirit will act like your old friends from 10 years ago. They'll sling their arm around you and say, hey bro, and stuff like that. Oh, yes, that's it. What else? What else did they say? You'll be blessed with perfect health and children? Also, you'll get really good at swordplay? No, not that. What you're telling me is that someone who's deeply involved with the spirit tribe created this, yes? I wasn't sure those two things were related. The only spirit I knew was Regard, but as for being deeply involved, maybe? Many in this world didn't want anything to do with the spirit tribe, so in comparison, yes, I was deeply involved. It seems like there's a strong possibility this was made by the same person. Zenoba hummed thoughtfully to himself as he spun the figurine in his hand. Finally, he thumped it to the ground and reached back into the bag. The only other thing left inside should have been an emergency change of clothes. Then tell me, do you recognize this? What he produced from the bag this time was a Roxy figurine. He put it on the floor, then plunked himself down behind it. Ah. This demon figurine was discovered 5 years ago in the markets. He put his hands on his chin and gazed affectionately at the figurine. When I tried to use the Regard figure to proselytize, I found out that the demon figurines were forbidden due to the influence of the milices The Millis religious organization. I assumed Zenoba was looking to condemn the person who created them, although he didn't seem very angry. It was my brother who discovered this one. When he just saw it looked like Roxy, our court magician at the time, he purchased it directly from the merchant in the market. Your court magician at the time? I clarified, noting the past tense. Hmm? Yes, it seems you are unaware, but Roxy Magurias has already left this country. She ran after being unable to tolerate my brother's unwanted sexual advances. No, actually, I had already heard about that from Pax. It made sense that she left after being sexually harassed. How exactly did your brother try getting friendly with her? Getting friendly? He stole her underwear and peeked at her while she was bathing. Seriously? How awful. People like that need to be severely punished, such as having their computer smashed in with a bat. He should be forced to live under the same roof as a young miss with a killer punch that could knock your lights out in one blow. He should be stripped naked, thrown in a cell, and have cold water tossed at him. Shoot, I'd even be willing to conjure up an earth lance and slam it right into his ass, one thick and shaped like a traffic cone. Anyway, seriously. Do you honestly think it was okay to steal Roxy's panties and all that? No, it was unacceptable. It was unforgivable. It didn't matter that he was a prince. He should know right from wrong. It was no wonder she left. Wait, by that logic, could it be that Roxy had quit being my tutor because of the things I did? More importantly, on the issue of these figurines, Zenova said, patting the soldier of the Roxy statuette. That's right, we were best leaving this depressing conversation behind us. I nodded, my face solemn. I have a weakness for figurines. I collect them from all over the world, he started, as a sort of preamble. This is the only one in my possession whose marker and origins I don't know. I know it was made of rock and chiseled down, but it's harder and heavier than the stonework used by the dwarves. No one in the world has the technique to chisel a sculpture this elaborate from such hard rock. For example, look here, at the staff. Even for the most adept dwarf, carving something so imprecisely in stone is incredibly difficult. He pointed to the weapon the figurine was holding as he spoke. Complex pieces like the staff were easy to break. A lot of trial and error went into trying to compensate for that flaw. As a reward for my efforts, I managed to create something very tough and durable. I used the same material to make the Spear on Reacher's figurine. It required a fair amount of mana, concentration, and time to achieve, more specifically an entire day just for a centimeter of work. I dedicated a lot to perfecting my technique, so I was happy to hear it being praised. Something this incredible was being sold for a mere 5 Asura gold coins. I would have paid 100 coins for this. It bothers me that those living on the streets are so unrefined and boorish they can't appreciate its value. Granted, the piece could be cheap specifically because it's a figurine of a demon. If one of the Millis' Faith's temple knights knew you were in possession of this, you'd be put on trial for heresy, even if you were a prince of Chiron. Then they would execute you for being a demon god worshipper. There could be a number of reasons why this is being sold at such a low price. Zenoa put a hand to his forehead and shrugged as if exasperated. Executed? Well, the temple knights were full of fanatics, apparently. I've searched for the creator of this figurine before. I don't care to get involved with a demon god worshipper, but still, I want to speak to the person who created this. It was then that Lilia suddenly appeared at my door, just one day after Roxy left. So they coincidentally just missed each other. Lilia was taken by the soldiers, and after things finally settled, Pax took possession of her. This was one of the things she had. Zenova said as he reached into the bag again and produced a small box, one I had no recollection of seeing. It was fist-sized. She carried it with her like it was so precious. It struck me as odd. Look at it closely. He opened it so I could see inside. There was something tucked into the folds of a soft-looking fabric, which he gently pulled away. Inside was a pendant carved of wood. Felt like I'd seen that sort of wood somewhere before. It was hand-carved, though you could tell it wasn't made by practiced hands. The pendant? The pendant is irrelevant. He pinched it between his fingers and placed it on the top of the bag. His movements were so graceful. Still, what did he mean by irrelevant? That was when I recognized the cloth that had been wrapped around the pendant. Now then, about those panties. Zenoba pinched the fabric between his fingers and stretched it out. It was white and shaped like a home plate. I knew those belonged to God, Roxy, without a shadow of a doubt. Those panties were the object of my worship. Lilia said she had tried to send these to you for your 10th birthday. So the pendant was just camouflage. Zenova had actually deduced that the real treasure was a cloth wrapped around them. Perhaps Lilia had tried to send them as is before, but realized it would look bizarre to send me underwear for my birthday, so she added the pendant. Unfortunately, my object of worship, Roxy's panties, had been washed. Roxy's extra virgin olive oil had been cleaned away, so they had already lost their divinity. God was no longer nestled in that pair of underwear. In her place resided Lilia's sincerity. So what about the panties? I asked, hiding the tremor in my voice. Zenoba hummed and nodded, leaning forward onto all fours. Before we talk about the panties, let me explain this figurine to you. And so he began to speak. The words came like a flood, unending. He had a look of ecstasy on his face the entire time. First, Look at it from the front. A glance will tell you that it's just a normal magician wielding a staff. Look at the way the fabric wrinkles, the way she steps out with one leg, her staff clutched tightly in her hand and thrust out. The moment is captured so vividly. Then look at the hem and sleeve of her robes, her wrists and ankles, the slight exposure of her skin. It's ever so slight, and yet it somehow has a sense of eroticism to it. It's from what little you can see that you realize this girl is thin, that her lithe figure is hidden within the depths of these robes. Her clothing is so loose around her, but you can tell. Next, let's look at her from behind. Normally, you can't see the outline of the body in bagging clothing, but by putting the leg in front, the clothing is pulled tight so you can see just the slightest outline of her butt, a small butt. You probably wouldn't find it sexy at all if you saw it in real life, but the way it stands out in this baggy robe is exactly what makes it sexy. It's the way her butt is presented that makes you want to see more. And actually, you can do just that. If you unclasp the part that keeps the robe on here, you can see her innocent form clad in underwear. Not only that, but this girl isn't wearing a bra either. A good decision for someone like Roxy, since she has such a small chest. Oh my god, motherfucker. Now, if you turn the figurine back around, you see that her left arm is covering her breasts. Strange, you'd think, because her left hand was grasping her staff just a moment ago. But if you look at the robe you just pulled off, you realize that her left hand was attached to it. That's right. This figure has 3 arms, one extra for when the robe is attached, and another for when you reduce her to her underwear. With this little gimmick, it's like you have 2 figures in one. Truly genius. Normally, constructing a figure with removable clothing forces the pose to be static, but hiding an extra limb within her clothes gives a sense of freedom to her pose. God. That's not the only thing.
8 pages left, and then I'm calling it.
I'm trying.
No, you're good. You're good.
Why does
letting
this
you
go
know
on
the
for like
chapter-
4 pages?
The chapter ends in about 8 more pages, so I'm just like,
Yeah.
cut it there. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Jesus Christ, this goes on forever. And
We
that's
went-
not the
we
only thing.
Probably went a little further than I was expecting, but dude, you've
Yeah.
already chewed through 98 pages.
Jesus fucking Christ, I didn't even
Yeah.
realize. Time flies when you're trying to fucking
Dude,
voice fucking crazy ass
Almost
people.
100 pages out of 272. You've gone a third of the book.
Fuck.
We're
Okay,
35%
well.
of the way through the book. My God.
Jesus
Jesus,
Christ. Okay.
If I just want to end the book in 2 weeks, I just let Shem read the whole fucking thing. Apparently.
Well, I guess so. Jesus Christ. Okay. I just kind of kept going, so.
You're a
Well.
machine, my dude. I'm gonna leave it to you.
I read books. Thumbs up.
Yeah, I read books. Yay.
Yeah.
Oh man,
That's-
I can't wait to get Hoshi in here and trying that.
Oh,
That's gonna be so funny.
oh dear. Okay. It'd be nice to meet them, but anyway.
Yeah.
That's not the only thing. Next, let's look at her from the side. When she wears her robe, the line of her back is curved and her leg is stretched out front. But when you take it off, for some reason she's slumped forward, almost as if she's trying to hide her chest, her body. Now that you've seen that, look at her face. When she had her robe on, she looked dignified. Now she looks like she's desperate to hide how shy she is, right? The person who made this understood that the impression given by the figurine would change with the clothes. That's why they knew they could leave the expression the same. This is an object of the most exquisite quality. Certainly, there are aspects of it that couldn't hope to compare to the nuanced skill of the dwarves. You might call it amateur at best, and yet this figurine itself is in a realm far beyond what those crude dwarves could hope to achieve. I didn't miss a single word he said. Most people would have been flabbergasted by his spiel, but I was the creator of that figurine. I digested everything he said and was quite satisfied with his review in the end. That was a given, of course. Never before had I heard someone talk so animatedly about something I'd made. Of course, he was exactly right. I used every skill I had at the time to create that figurine, even though it was still the work of an amateur. Anyone who looked closely would realize its potential. I was happy he'd spotted that even the minute details I'd labored to perfect. There was just one thing missing. It was the reason why I'd had her hide her breasts with her hand. Huh? I realized my realization. The mole under her armpit is gone. Hmm? Zenova responded, turning the Roxy figure again. Ah, the dark spot under her arm. I thought it lowered the beauty of the figure, so I shaved it off, he said offhandedly. I froze at his words. My eyes widened and my body stilled. You shaved it off? Yes. And the fact you know about that means you do know something about this figurine, don't you? I ignored him. Turn the figure around a little. Answer my question before I do. I said turn it. I barked coldly, surprising myself. Zenoa let out a whine and shrank back, but as he did, as I said, and spun the statue around. Stop it there. Now look at it again. I made him stop and look at the point on the figurine where you could just barely see where the mole had been. Look where the hand is positioned. What are you talking about? Don't ask. Just look. I could tell Zenova was annoyed with the harsh tones in which I spoke. Still, he complied and looked at the figurine. He was quite the serious type. Can you tell that she's not quite covering it? Hmm? I continued. Can you tell that her hand doesn't quite reach it? Ah, Zenova said in a quiet voice. Finally, he understood why she was hiding her chest with her hand. He understood why, in a world where the concept of 18 or older wasn't a thing, I chose not to reveal Roxy's modest, adorable breasts. Do you understand now why she's hiding her breasts, but not hiding that mole? No way. It can't be. Zenova was trembling all over. That was right. That was the exact reason I'd zero in on her mole, since you couldn't see her nipples. The next thing that stood out was her mole, and I had emphasized her embarrassment at not being able to hide both. In other words, the sexiest aspect of that figurine was the mole itself. I I didn't understand at all, and I've defiled this creation. His eyes went blank and his body started to convulse. Foam was spouting from his mouth. Wasn't this a bit of an exaggerated response? Well, it's just a mole. You can add it back on pretty easily. Anyway, what about the panties? The panties are the same as the ones on the figurine. My gaze flitted between the fabric in his hands and the statuette. The underwear on it was exactly the same as my former object of worship. That made sense. I'd used the underwear I was most familiar with as a reference when creating the figurine. On a related note, Roxy had 4 other pairs of underwear at the time, the details of which were all a bit different. She was quite fashion conscious. So, that's what this is about. So that's what this is about. All right. So what do you want me to tell you about the figurine then? No use hiding it anymore. If he was treating the figurine with this much care, then he probably wasn't going to hand me over to the Temple Knights. Ah! Zenoba's entire body suddenly fell to the floor, slapping against the ground. It shocked me. So you, my lord, are the one who created this figurine. And now he was groveling before me. I had no idea what was going on. The only thing I did know was how magnificent Roxy was. I would know less, or expect no less, from a pupil of the Water King magician Roxy. You made this figurine using magic, didn't you? How dare he use her name without a proper title? That's Miss Roxy to you. My lord, I look at your creation every day. Every time I see it, I discover something new, and my respect for you only grows stronger. Please, allow me to call you master. He scurried across the floor like an insect as he spoke, trying to kiss my shoes, only to be repelled with a loud cry as he smacked against the barrier instead. He looked like one of those obsessed fans vying for the newest release on the 3rd day of a summer comiket. Gah! Why is this barrier here? Who dared to put this here? Master, please allow me to pay my respects to your godlike hands. Please! And that was how I obtained a slightly creepy disciple. I met people like this in my previous life. Most of them were people I met online, people I couldn't quite call friends. Now I understood. This was the face those people were making behind the screens. This must have been what the man god foresaw happening. I was to be taken inside the castle where I'd meet this guy. We'd bond and he'd lend me his power to help me escape. All right, the ending was now in sight. Oh, geez. I put on my best Buddha face and said, My pupil, there should be a magical crystal in this room maintaining this barrier. Find it and destroy it. Understood, master. Once I've carried that out, please, I beg of you, impart upon me your knowledge of the figurine craft. You'll be excommunicated if you don't carry it out. Never again will I permit you to call me master, I said. Yes, of course, Zenoba replied energetically. He began to search the inside of this room, then the floor above, skittering across the floor as if he were a cockroach. An hour passed, and the only thing that Zenova discovered was a letter-sized hole in the ceiling with a removable lid. Apparently, this was how Pax intended to toss food down to me. This was all well and good, but how was the prince intending to deal with the excrement and me getting sick from it? Perhaps he intended to toss a sleeping agent here lower the barrier while I was knocked out to deal with it. No, let's be honest, he probably hadn't given it any thought at all. Pax was the kind of guy who thought taking care of a pet consisted merely of giving him food and nothing else. At any rate, I could find a way to escape if we removed the lid covering the hole. If the room had a high ceiling, I could probably climb out if someone threw a rope down. Unfortunately, the heavy stone slab that acted as a lid was so firmly planted over the hole, it was almost like it had been welded there. Removing it would prove difficult. There was apparently another magic circle drawn on top of it, too. They seemed to be a set. Your Highness, is there no one under your command who's knowledgeable about barriers? I asked. I don't have anyone under my command. Really, you don't? Even Pax had his own Imperial Guard. I traded the last of them for this Roxy figurine. Ah, and what a wonderful deal it was. So this guy was a moron, too. Also, what the heck was wrong with this country if you could trade your guards away like that? All right, now I understand. Ooh, you do? Just what I'd expect from you, Master. Yes, it looks like you'll be excommunicated after all. What? My creepy little disciple would be excommunicated with unusual swiftness. Actually, no, I had no intention of losing a helper I'd been lucky enough to obtain. I amended my statement. Let's change my earlier requirement. As long as you help me get out of here, I'll make you my pupil once I'm free. Yes, that's completely fine with me. Just a bit. Just wait for a bit. I'll break through the ceiling with my fist. Don't be irrational. I hurried to stop Zenoba as he glared at the ceiling, his hand curled into a fist. The look on his face seemed genuine. His face said he'd keep punching away at the lid until the bones in his hands were shattered to pieces. Zenoba fidgeted for a while before suddenly looking up, as if he'd realized something. Master, just who was it that created this barrier? Judging by our conversation, pretty sure it was the Seventh Prince Pax. Now that you mention it, Ginger did say something along those lines. You mean you didn't hear the specifics? I asked just to clarify. A bit. I was too busy thinking about figurines. Oh, I said. Okay then. At any rate, it seemed like this prince was in contact with Ginger. Ginger must have been making her own moves in the background, which meant she had her own issues with Pax. Zanova said he came here just because Ginger told him about me. That meant that Ginger wanted the two of us to meet. She must have seen the Regent figurine and thought we had similar interests. But what was her aim in trying to win over an undependable person like Zenoba? Zenoba spoke up. So, Master, that means I just have to do something about Pax, right? Yeah, that would do the trick. Zenoba thought for a moment, then spoke in a voice so quiet that the excitement he exhibited before seemed almost like a lie. Very well. Please be patient for a little while, then. Before you do anything, please get someone's input first. Like Miss Ginger's, for instance. Or mine. Ha ha ha! Master, you really are a worrywart. Rest at ease, you can leave everything to me. What? Hey, wait a second, where are you going? Listen to me. What are you planning to do? Sonoma just laughed as he climbed back up the stairs and left. Are you kidding me? I had the distinct feeling I'd really screwed something up. Forcing this prince, who apparently had no servants of his own, to make a move felt like the equivalent of shoving a stick in a hornet's nest. A keen sense of foreboding came over me. I should have just asked him to bring me some food instead. However, as I would soon learn, I was completely mistaken. I totally misread the man known as Zenoba Chiron. Looking back on what had transpired, I would come to realize that the course of events was probably decided the moment Zenoba found out I was the creator of that figurine. Chapter 6, The Speedy Resolution. Is this where we're stopping? Oh.
Yeah, since we're at the end of the chapter, it should be,
Cool.
Richie.
I feel like
Please.
it'd be a thing where it's like Shem's like, no, we're
Richie,
stopping
do you
here.
realize you're muted if you're talking?
I don't know. Yeah.
Computer, which
Well. Okay.
Mm.
I've been
It's
muted
probably
on
working.
both Discord and Steam, or the stream this entire time.
Yeah. Okay.
So
yeah,
I'm listening to stuff to stay awake.
Yeah, that's
Fair
fine.
enough.
Like
That's understandable.
Shem, I love you, but your voice is like a fucking lullaby when I'm exhausted.
That's cool.
he does have a very
Good to
soothing
know.
voice.
I literally got
appreciate it.
done. I got done with all my stuff that I needed to do 25 minutes in, and then I'm like, all right, cool. I'm gonna listen. And then I started listening. About 5 minutes in, I start nodding, and I'm like, oh fuck.
That is until I start voicing
and
Pax and all
sitting
reason
here
goes
like
out
I
the
gotta
window.
keep going for like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours of this shit. I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna fall asleep on fucking stream again. I can't do that.
Well, at least you won't be on camera this time.
Yes, but here's
Yeah.
the thing. Here's the crazy part, right?
Yes.
The only way I knew that I could seriously stay awake was to either, one, watch a bunch of really loud shit, or two, turn on a game. And I can't be gaming while you guys are fucking reading. That's so disrespectful.
You've done it before, so I don't want to hear that.
I mean, I could just
He's not
give
wrong,
Pax's
though.
voice to everyone so you're awake. It'd be killer on my voice, but I could make it happen.
Wait, when
That's
was
probably
the
my
last
loudest,
time I
most
was gaming
obnoxious
while
voice.
you guys were reading?
You've done it at least 3 or 4 times, because there was one time, like,
Was
right
it on
after we
Steam or
finished, you were
something?
like, so, yeah, here, I'm playing this game. And so, like,
Yeah, I mean,
don't tell us you
To
can't
be
game
fair-
and do this at
to
the
be
same
fair,
time.
that does
it's
sound
like,
like okay, fine. You know what, Shem? I can't disrespect you.
I mean, that's fine. I
Okay.
understand. I mean, I get it. I mean,
I
I
can
put on
understand that.
I put on streams of like Vine sauce and stuff while doing
I
anything.
don't remember doing that shit, but it
I understand.
absolutely sounds like some dumbass shit I would do.
So, I mean, it's okay.
So many times.
Yeah,
It's okay.
The thing is, I wasn't doing it to like out of like a worry of being disrespectful. It was more like I don't think I can game and host the stream and like all the stuff that I'm supposed to be doing for this at the same time. I just don't think I
Oh.
can. I don't think I can physically do it anymore. Maybe I'm just getting old, or maybe it's just a thing of like maybe I just shouldn't. Either or.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
It could be.
Because you're worth it.
No, because I was no. It can't be Maybelline. I was born with it. ADHD runs in my blood, and it's. I would say it runs
Does it
in
also
my
walk
family, but
right?
it doesn't. I would love to.
There's
be
not
like,
much that runs in your family, is there?
Damn. Ouch.
No, we're
Holy
I'm
pretty.
sorry.
fuck.
That's the usual joke.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, you're right. We're not strong runners, but we're great swimmers.
Fair enough.
Yeah. You know,
Nice.
they say it's a race to the finish, and I'm like, that's a good place to end.
Well, well. Where's the lie, though?
I'm just saying, there's a
Yeah.
reason why everybody in my family really likes eggs.
Oh. Oh. Understandable.
No, the
Have a nice
worst
day.
part was I know immediately what game I would have turned on to stay awake. I just popped on Subnautica.
I was going to say Power World.
No,
Or
no.
that. You've done Power World before, yeah.
I have done
Yeah.
Power World. No, no, I would
Coolness.
either do Subnautica or be playing the First Descendant.
Not
I
satisfactory.
just found out that there's like there's some VTubers that plays First Descendant, and literally my favorite description of the First Descendant now is somebody just called it the booty screen, and I'm like,
The booty screen.
you're not wrong, because Koreans love some ass. They just love some
And
cheeks.
legs.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh dude, I need to show you.
I mean, legs are big in Chinese
Ina?
culture, too, honestly.
I
Huh?
need to show you Ina at some point. Like, holy shit!
Uh-huh.
There's that bodysuit does a that
Are you talking about Ina's
skin
model?
tight suit. That skin tight suit that she wears does a body good. That's all I'm saying.
Is it like a 2B kind of game or a Nier Automata game?
No, hang on. I think it's Ina's Raya or something.
I do like Nier Automata.
Okay, so Ina's Raya, the First Descendant, bloody fucking blah. Okay, there's gotta be like a full body. Okay, you need to see her from front and behind. Jesus. Come on, man. Why
What
is the
did
internet slacking? There
what
we
did Moon
go.
say that one time? He said, "Hate to see her go, but love to watch her leave."
Mm-hmm.
Love to watch her walk away. Yeah.
It stuck with me. It's like there's wisdom in those words.
There
Oh,
is.
yeah.
There is.
Honky tonk, badonka donk.
Sometimes you just need to look at that.
There is wisdom.
And if you click open the browser, the picture gets bigger. I mean,
That's
the
not the
picture's
only thing that
probably-
gets bigger.
I was about to say it's probably
Like
not
my
the only
ego.
thing that gets bigger, but yeah. I will say though, she's actually a powerful fucking electric character. God damn. God.
Well, cool. Damn, it looks. Actually, you know what she looks like? She kind of looks like that lady from Milo, the City Atlantis.
My God, that's an actual thing. Like this right here, that's
Yeah.
a real camera angle you can have.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The guy's face. He's like, interessante. Wow.
What's even better? Oh no, God, no. Okay, this
Probably
is
has more polygons than Ocarina of Time.
This is. Well, I mean, there's a lot of games nowadays that do. That's not saying a lot.
I know.
Also, I just want to point out that the other thing is that you can get a pupper. You can get a little dog.
Whoa.
Yeah, a little
Well.
German good old boy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Can you pet it though?
Yes, you can pet it. You can play tricks with it. You can there's so many different emotes that you can use with the dog. Yeah.
Yay. That's all that matters. Yeah. Isn't this also a gotcha game too, or am I mistaken?
I don't know.
I don't quite know.
guess he's got like a round face. I haven't played the game, so I would know.
All right. Yeah, but that's it. That's it, guys. We'll see you next
Yeah,
week.
we did it.
We're
Yeah.
gonna make Moon read next week.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gotta get me the book first.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, you
That's
need
also
it.
true. So if you want to make Moon read, buy him the book.
Yeah.
And if
I
you
also
want
kind of want to
make...
see your depiction of Pax getting dragged by the head
Oh,
down the stairs
Oh,
I
as
that'd
would
be
he's like
love that because
squealing like.
I could do it
There's
pretty
way
good Pax
more.
voice regardless.
Like I said
Good.
before, there's way more that goes
I can't
on in
wait
the
for
book than
that.
there does in the anime. The anime was
I can't
really
wait for him to
quick
be
with this.
dragged down the stairs,
Yeah.
kicking and screaming while Zenoba's holding his dumb little head.
Like I said, the anime
Now you
just kind of
apologize.
the anime just kind of goes through this section really, really quick. It is.
I don't blame them.
It is, but there's way more detail in the light novel, and you're like, man.
To be fair, there's a lot of detail that we don't necessarily want.
Yeah,
Well,
or need to know.
yes,
I was
Yeah.
like,
yes,
are you? Why are
yes,
you
but
saying
also
that about
no.
your sister? I
Yes,
hate
but
it.
also no because of the fact that
It depends on it.
Yes, but also no because like we needed it to slow down when Pax was getting his comeuppance.
Yeah, that's definitely
Also-
good, and that's
yeah,
great.
no,
But
that's
like,
fair.
Also, Jesus Christ, what the fuck, Rudy? You're supposed to be smart. You fell for this so easily. You absolute moron. You just walked dick first into his trap.
that is true.
Like,
Yep.
this entire time, Rudy has been cautious. He's been taking... He just walks like...
It's kind of like how
dude.
he did with the Dragon God when he was
Roxy's the
like, "Hey,
trigger
do you
word,
know
what can
anything
I
about the
say?"
Man God?"
He's like, Jesus, man. Like...
I don't know. I know he's not perfect, but it's like,
I know, but this
man,
is...
you
This is,
need.
there's a difference between being a flawed character... Now, I can't argue this because, like... We all know plenty of intelligent people that have stupid moments.
Or yeah, of course, but it's like,
Or they
I don't
start
know,
thinking
man.
with their dick and they can't think about anything else.
Well, especially like
Yeah.
my guy, my man. Please don't. Why are you going into so much detail about some of this stuff? I did not need to know about like half of the things you talk about, or even a quarter of the things you talk about. I
Are you
swear to
talking about
God,
Rudy or Zenoba?
Rudy.
Rudy,
Because he's sitting
Zenoba.
there,
I
it's
mean,
all like, for some reason, I'm just not aroused when it comes to family. It's like, cool, we don't need to spend 10 pages on that.
yeah. I mean, quite frankly, we also didn't need to spend time with Zenoba gushing about it. But at the same time, it's like,
Well, he's talking. All
at least
right.
it's a
Here's the thing.
figure. But at the same time, it's
He's
like,
not.
yeah.
He's not necessarily commenting on.
And he's not
on the
talking about his
body.
sister. So
He's
yeah,
talking.
he's talking about the craftsmanship.
He's specifically talking about a doll. So just imagine instead of a naked figure of Roxy, he's going nuts over a gun.
No,
club.
we're talking about his sister.
No.
Yeah,
when he was
well,
talking about
that's-
his
yeah.
sister.
I'm talking about Zenoba specifically.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Zenoba's
Oh, okay.
understandable though.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
understand Zenoba that whole thing.
Instead of going into detail about Roxy, because that part, the Roxy doll, like, yeah. What if he was going
need
into
that
that
much
level
detail?
of obsessive detail about a gunpla? Like, it's the same thing. Same fucking
okay.
thing to
They
him.
did fine with. They spent a good amount of time.
My
on that
God.
in
Okay,
the anime,
guys,
so.
knowing how things move forward with Zenoba, I'm like, my dude, if somebody introduced him to mechs, that would be the end. Like he would never, he wouldn't give a.
What about
like you think
figure?
he
What
does?
about
I do
give a fuck
appreciate
about
him.
humanity now.
Yeah.
But,
It just introduces.
Or he can make his own.
Gundam
Understanding
series.
his personality, dude, it's crazy. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for
just can't
coming
wait,
by and
though.
hanging out with us. Also, don't think
Yeah.
I missed it. I was just muted the whole time. What's up, Sky? I'm glad that you dropped in. Good to see you there. Love seeing
Hello.
the neuro emotes. It's always nice. So, yeah, there we go. Woo! When we let Shim read, we let Shim read. You know.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, you guys take care, and
Yep. You too.
We'll see you all next time on the stream. And coming up we have what's happening tomorrow? Is somebody streaming tomorrow? I think somebody's streaming.
I
tomorrow.
don't know.
Moon is, I believe.
Tomorrow is Tuesday, so I'll be streaming on my own channel.
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about. I was specifically talking about Fat Dog.
I think
Oh, like-
Asha might be.
Yeah,
I
I think
mean,
so too.
getting the streamable thing fixed with Konosuba?
What does that have to do with streaming?
For
I-
Konosuba.
Hmm?
Streamable is not a streaming platform. That's for Patreon.
Gotcha. Well, I thought there was an issue with that, or as you were talking
There
about.
is.
I think he's working through that though.
I'm talking
assume-
about.
oh.
I'm talking about the Fat Dog streaming here on Twitch.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah. Like if I just wanted to show Konosuba on Twitch, I could do it right fucking now. Like that's not even a problem. Like I mean, technically what's probably going to happen in the interim is I'm just going to send in the link to the Google Drive just if I can't get it working. Okay, so I'm trying to look at the streaming schedule. Yes. Tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. EST is when Asha will be streaming, and then Moon, you're streaming at 6 p.m. EST on Wednesday. So come
Yep.
by for Moon's watch-alongs. He's going to be checking out Fruits Basket 2019.
Ooh,
For
interesting.
those who don't know, he was for the last 2 weeks. He has been watching the 2001 version of Fruits Basket. And yeah, get ready. Season 1 is kind of everything that you've watched in 2001, but slightly different. And then Asha will be back on Thursday with Infinity Nikki, and then we'll have Fun Friday. We're gonna continue with Satisfactory with Hoshi Nugget. So we'll
Mhm.
get,
Is it
we'll
the
get Hoshi back
the
on.
Satisfactory World that we did, or is that a different one?
No, it's a different one.
Okay.
We've already done way too much on the world that you did. Moon and I got very carried
Gotcha.
away.
Yeah, it was
We-
fun.
We caught the bug. Okay, here's the good news. We have not gotten to the point of nuclear yet. But we did unlock coal and oil.
That's good.
We
nuclear
went
rage
like
comes
what?
later.
We went like what, six steps further than where we were left off. And
I think.
And I'm gonna be 100% with you. It's a mess. It's an absolute mess. If you look at it from
Just a bit.
if you look at where we built from a top-down view, yeah, we got a little spaghetti going on. You know, you could look down and be like, I sent nudes. You know, it's
Mhm.
ready for pasta sauce. Just a bowl of nudes. But yeah.
Nice.
It is what it is. We'll see how things go. Hopefully
what it
we all
is.
survive the week.
Yep.
Cause it's a jungle out there, guys.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the amount of information that dropped this weekend was overwhelming. And I'm like, I'm just trying to breathe. Can I just breathe? Can I come up for air?
No, you have to absorb all this information and
Ugh.
process
Absorb.
it and respond
Dude,
to
I
it.
can't wait. I can't wait
Like,
for
comment, and
Subnautica
subscribe
2.
to it.
I can't wait for Subnautica 2. I'm really bummed that the first Subnautica is single player only. Like that is a game that screams play with friends.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because if you're terrified of the ocean, why not be terrified of the ocean with someone else who's also terrified of the ocean? It's great
Yeah.
content. It's great
The ocean
content.
is scary.
The ocean is scary. The
The
ocean
ocean is
is
actually scary.
the ocean is space without black holes. That's
Yeah.
basically that's basically
We only
what it
know
a
about
great
like
way
what
to put it.
25% of the known underwater world.
is. Oh, that's
Like something like
that's
that.
adorable.
That's on our planet.
Wait.
Yeah.
No, hold on. That's adorable. You actually think we've discovered 25%? That's optimistic.
I mean, like
Yeah,
the
it
top
was-
25% of the water, like from the waterline
Oh, I
down.
don't even know about that, my friend.
I don't know about that, man.
yeah.
I would say that we've scoured about 5% of the actual ocean.
Yeah, it's kind of scary how much we haven't seen.
We haven't even
and
gone
what
to the
lurks
deep
below.
down. I am firmly convinced that we are not the most intelligent species on this planet. We're probably like the
Oh.
third or something. I guarantee you there are very intelligent, highly advanced civilizations way, way down there that we can't see because they literally use like certain
Things to-
levels of the Earth as like a shield. They're like, yeah,
Or like a barrier to us,
yeah, they're like, nah, we're
kind of like aliens.
that species up there. That's the measles. We don't want that.
That's fucked up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're like cancer. They don't want to get cancer. You know,
Yeah, that's fair.
we're Earth cancer. That's what we are. Or worse, my favorite one, cooties. You know, and then
Ew.
and then in 1969.
That's where that came from.
And in 1969, the Earth spread cooties to the moon.
That is. Well,
Guys,
least not
I
our
think
moon.
I've got humans. Ew! Earth has humans! Get away from them!
They propagate so fast.
he was breathing my air.
All right,
Moon, you
guys.
gotta help
Cooties,
me!
skip
What?
down,
No!
look
Get your
out.
humans away from me! Oh god, they're building a ship! No!
Okay.
Feel them
so
crawling all over
They're
me.
contagious.
Ugh.
Discord,
I too
Discord
have
is
the
probably
cooties now.
Discord is probably gonna cut this off because it's a loud yell and a scream. But
Yeah,
basically,
unfortunately.
if I want to sum up what the last week and a half has been like for me, the easiest way is to just be like, I even put the
Understandable.
warble in my throat, man. I had that,
Yeah.
"Ah."
Understandable,
Good
my
stuff.
friend.
Yeah. And that's just from like going out to like get a bite to eat. I haven't even started talking about politics yet. The world's just on fire.
Yeah.
Do we need politics
How
though right
about
now?
yours? That's the way I like it.
I
and I
can
never get
get
bored.
bored.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Well,
if you ask me, I could use a little less excitement like that in my life.
indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I don't like
gang,
waking up to every day being a new adventure. Anyway,
See, this is the problem with nostalgia. You tend to
Mhm.
people tend to nostalgize about like one or two things and they forget everything else and they're like, "Oh my god. Oh my god." I'm like, "Yeah. Yeah, this is what it was like. 2020 wiped your mind. This is what it was like." To be fair, I think 2020 was like the brain reset for everything. Like once
Yeah.
the year was over, we were all just like, "Fuck." Yeah, everybody remembers 2020. They don't remember most of the stuff that happened before, and I'm like, "Oh no, it wasn't exactly an uphill ride then either."
no,
Yeah.
no, it was not.
All right,
Nah.
but regardless, we will be back Friday, and we will be back Wednesday, and we will be back Sunday with Anime Church, and we'll be back next week with more light novel streams. And make sure to come by and show Asha some love on Tuesday and Thursday. And if you want, you could drop by some of these guys' channels like Snelcom Velocity, Moonlight Sparks. You can check them out when they're streaming stuff. That is what it is.
Mhm.
Let's raid somebody.
Sonic went whole ass fucking Minecraft villager there.
Okay,
Mm.
I'm so
Mm.
glad you
Mm.
continued saying that because Sonic went whole ass, and I'm like,
Yes. Whole
I
ass.
didn't even
Have you
try
not
to
More.
For
say
the
that.
world
Funny.
to see.
Say more things. All right, so here's the vote. We either raid Yui, Leafy, or Joel.
Joel?
Joel.
Yeah,
Porcelain
Joel's
Maid.
doing Poppy's Playtime
Huh.
right now.
Yeah.
I see.
Yui's doing Genshin and Leafy's doing Party Animals.
I thought you were talking
Mm.
Vine Sauce Joel, who I also like.
So who we doing?
Joel?
I mean, we rated Joel last time, right?
Yes,
you-
but also Joel with that huge freaking audience helps.
Did he like seeing us? Or sorry, did they like
Dude,
seeing us?
Joel is a
That's
fan
cool.
of ours.
Yay! I like
before
Joel.
voicing in Konosuba Force, because he's the first voice you hear in Konosuba.
Hooray!
But yeah, we reached out to him. He was like, "You mean Fat Talk Studios on YouTube?" We're like, "Wait, he knows who the fuck we are?" Turns out he's a fan.
Hooray!
I was like, "What the fuck?" So yeah,
That helps out a lot.
yeah, let's raid Joel.
Joel, have you been drawing
Joel.
dicks again, Joel? Sorry, that's a Vine Sauce Joel bit. He's the
All right, so
granddad guy.
we could
Yeah.
be dog pile or book club raid. You want to do book club raid this time?
Yeah, sure.
Book club
Yeah, sure.
raid. All right.
Look
club, book club. I need water. Book
BC
club.
raid.
Yep. Oh my god, faces.
I hope he's not signing off. I really hope. I really hope I'm not
let me
rating
check.
him for. I listened. And
I
it
think
did
he's
not.
been going through.
He's been going for
I think
a
he's
while.
been going through a lot of all the puppy playtimes because I think he started with 2 earlier
All
and
right.
then is now on 3.
Guys, here we go. 7 view. Oh no, he's continuing to play. We're all good. So
Yeah.
let's get to it. Book club raid on 3. 1, 2, 3.